Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, or as it will now be known, Cornette's Drive Thru. We're going to do away with the name Jim. We're going to be like modern wrestling here and go with what really counts. I'm your host, Last. And of course, the man who will be answering your questions, here he is, Cornette.
Why can't I just be Jim? Jim's Drive Thru. There's Jim.
It has to pass not just the name test, the Vince McMahon name test. Would he go with Jim or would he go with Cornette?
No, that would be perfect for the WWE Universal Championship, Jim versus Brian. Just let everybody figure it out from there. That intro wouldn't have got you passed through to the next round of American Idol on the first word. Also, by the way, hello is a clinker.
Well, I'm a little...
It was a little pitchy, dog.
A little pitchy. Dog.
We've got the throats today. You're freezing up there in the Northeast. I'm freezing down here in the whatever the hell this is now. It's going to be 80 something 4 days in a row upcoming, and then we're going to have a frost warning after that. We've just got out of the frost warning. It's rained incessantly. Spring is like 3 weeks behind at least. And I've been screaming at people this weekend as you will find out. You know, every action movie, Brian, needs what does it need? It needs a sequel, right? As you get Fast and Furious 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5 and then 6, people have been calling for this. We've got a sequel. It's got a twist ending this time, though, but there's a sequel to Dead Mustang Hill.
Get out of here. That's like my favorite story you ever had on the show, really?
Well, it ain't as good the second time around, but it's fucking more frustrating.
Just like a real sequel.
There you go. Except for Bride of Frankenstein. The gravitational pull that my area of the front area of my property and my neighbor's property and this hill here has for vehicles is ridiculous. So Friday, and I must make mention of the fact that along the front of my property next to the road, I've been having the Monroe brothers past few weeks. It wouldn't take us long, but it wouldn't stop fucking raining. Dressing everything up down there because 10 years ago, whatever, the county came by, widened the road 18 inches to make it legal, put a curb on it. It's more dangerous now than it was before. Plus, everybody's drainage sucks. Right at the road, all the people on my side of the road, because it's going downhill, it's a mess, water, potholes in the road down the street, the whole 9 yards. So I'm having the Monroe brothers finally. They put in 2 nice strips of French drains with gravel so I wouldn't be soggy and muddy, and when I'm trying to go get my mail, wouldn't have to step in a poodle. And putting some sod underneath one tree and a creekstone circle underneath the walnut tree down there, and or is it a chestnut tree? I forget which kind of nuts we get. But anyway, it's going to be just fine, right? And they're coming on Saturday to finish putting the rest of the gravel in the French drain and finish the creekstone circle. And this past Saturday, I should say, it'll be all done, right? So on Friday, I'm out in the garage and I look out and I see across the road, it's behind a bush, but I walked about halfway down there to see. There's a car across the road in the woods. And it's right across from my neighbor's property, literally 25 feet directly to the north of where the Mustang came to rest on my fence. So in other words, on the other side of the road, not my side, but it's sitting in the fucking woods. I'm like, are they conducting some kind of surveillance back there? Who is this? We got to check this out. So I get the binoculars. And I determined that, well, I'm not going to walk up on it if there's somebody in there. Who knows what kind of surreptitious activity.
Are they conducting surveillance? You're conducting surveillance.
Well, I'm surveilling the surveillors, motherfuckers. I want to see who's seeing. If you're looking back at me, if I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me to see if you to see what I'm saying. So there's nobody in the car. So I go down there and I see the track marks. Another dumb shit. And this is out-of-state plates, so they're dumb shits all over the place, has come up over Dead Mustang Hill, too far in the middle, trying to stay away from the dangerous edge of the road, not paying attention, going too fast, not paying attention, whatever the case, and has swerved over off the road so he don't hit somebody coming over the hill and is gone into the mud, all the rain we've had over there, and got stuck. And then he's already over the hill. So he came back up in the mud, so he tries to go a little farther forward, but then he still can't get out of the rut he's in back to get on the road. So he has the brilliant idea to turn right, make a 90-degree right turn, and pull further into the woods on a flat place where he thinks he can back out somehow perpendicular onto the road so somebody over the hill can fucking come over and kill him. I don't know what the plan was. But anyway, it's sitting there and bogged down. So I come back in the house and I call a neighbor because it's across from his place so he can call the cops, right? So he already has called the cops because he's seen it when he came back in from such side. He said, it's been there about an hour. Well, the cops come by and they look at it. It's not stolen or wanted or anything. So they call the appropriate people to get the tow truck in motion. Obviously, there's not a lot of call for dragging cars out of the woods around here, so that it's going to take a while for the tow truck to get here. And I'm continuing work in my Cornette's Collectibles Fulfillment Center, a.k.a. garage, when I look out again about an hour and a half later, and see these two guys walking down the road. I said, he's going to get that car. And I went out the driveway and crouched down behind Black Beauty with the binoculars. And here
Hold on, you crouched down behind the car?
I'm keeping an eye on them. What are they doing down there?
I mean, it's one thing. I thought you were using your binoculars from the house. You're actually like crouching down in position.
Well, the car is at the house and it still requires binoculars, but I didn't want them to just see me standing there staring at them with binoculars. Because I'm thinking, here's the goddamn thing. All my front strip of property there, everything's done except the gravel for the French drain, and it's warmed up enough in the spring where the grass is green and it just got mowed that it looks beautiful, right? My grass is beautiful down there. I don't want anybody fucking with anything down there. So I'm looking, and one of them gets in, and now there's four of them. So three of them are pushing, and they're fucking shoving, and they're spinning, and they get turned around kind of sideways, but they can't get up the hill. And then they quit for a second and they're walking around. And then I see 3 or 4 more guys walking down the road. And they look like the football players from the high school. It's about 3 miles past the woods and the subdivision over here. I'm thinking he's gone and got the whole football team. And now,
how does that work?
There's 8 of them. They must be friends. I don't know. I wouldn't do this for a complete stranger. There's 8 of them, and they're still trying to push that thing backwards and uphill and out of the mud and tires spinning. Just stay where you are. I'm trying to figure out if they're going to spin out and somehow damage my corner, right? And here comes 3 more guys down the road. They must have either walked through the subdivision down the street or pulled their car in somewhere else because they're just walking. And finally, there's a dozen of these motherfuckers. And together they push. It looked like they were trying to hold Wardlow back. And together, but now there's cars coming over the fucking hill, right? And every time they send this one little sickly looking bastard that probably wasn't much help in the pushing. He's very skinny to try to stop the cars. Well, he walks out on the hill to start waving at cars as a car's coming over and jumps back like, oh shit. It almost run him down. There's the horn. And finally, he gets out there to stop the traffic, and they push this thing back onto the road and start pulling down the rest of the hill. And I'm like, all right, show's over, and turn into my driveway. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, this is where it takes a dark turn. Don't you dare pull off the side of my driveway and make any kind of track marks. And they did a clown car thing with about 6 of them and backed up and pulled out. And the rest of them jogged down the road afterwards. And I thought, well, that would have been an interesting story had I had to scream at anybody, right? But as it was, there was no violence. Now comes the twist ending. Because the next day, the Monroe brothers get here. And I said, okay, we're going to finish that creekstone circle around the tree there, and we're going to finish the gravel in the French drains. So they go with their big old pickup truck to get the trailer and the load of gravel to finish the French drains. And actually, one of them stayed behind, two of them went. Point is, I've got to go over and drop some letters in the mailbox at the post office and go to the drive-thru at the bank. So I tell the guy, I said, I'm going to be back in about 15 minutes. And off I go. Well, I do that thing, and I come back 15 minutes later, and it just so happens that they've got back with the gravel in the trailer. Big old load of gravel, this big old trailer. It's a dumper trailer. It's not just a thing you just haul around. It's got the dumping mechanism and everything. But what happened, oh, and I forgot to mention, they're taking a giant dead tree out of the woman's front yard diagonally across the street from me on the other side. It's 10 feet from the road. It's 15 feet from her house. It's the oldest house on the street. It was a farmhouse built in the early 1900s. The tornadoes have scared her to death, obviously. So they've got a lane blocked of the road because this giant, mostly dead maple tree, 80 feet tall, is being cut down. So as I come back from the post office, I navigate that and then pull in the front of my property, and I'm about to pull into my driveway. And the sight that greets me, Brian, when they got back with the truck and the trailer of gravel, they wanted to dump the gravel onto a tarp instead of having to shovel it out of the trailer and then go and then shovel it into the French drain, right?
Right.
But the way that my driveway is configured, now bear in mind there's 40 feet between my front fence and the road. That's because of a water company and electric easement, and I don't want to have problems with them, so I just said, fuck it, I'm giving them that 40 feet. I'm decorating it, but I didn't build a permanent fence on it. But there's also the post with the mechanism that opens my gate, and there's also that tree there. And there's also the fact that the ground, it's been raining for 2 weeks, so the ground is very wet. And the part that they're fixing dips off on both sides of my driveway. That's why it gets wet. So they wanted to dump the gravel on a tarp, but then they said, well, if we dump the gravel on the tarp on the driveway, then he won't be able to get back in up the drive. So instead of waiting 15 minutes for me to come back, they decided they would dump it on the side of the driveway, on the tarp, on the ground to the side there, and I could still get through. But as they started doing this, they're trying to get the trailer to the point where it will dump off the side of the driveway. So by the time that I pull up, I am greeted by their truck and trailer completely perpendicular across the driveway, with the trailer in the grass on one side and the pickup truck in the grass on the other side. And I don't know how I wish I'd seen how they'd done it. Well, I would have stopped them from doing it, but I don't know how they did this on purpose. But they had, and then they're standing there looking around, scratching their heads on how did we get here and how we going to get out of here. And then I'm trying to turn in the driveway, and there's people coming over the hill, and the lane behind me is blocked 50 feet behind me with this giant fucking tree and this fucking truck with the wood chipper and the guy and the fucking chainsaw. And the cars are hitting their brakes because they don't see that, and they're going to fucking, then the people coming behind me are trying to go around me after they've gone around that. And then people coming, and I rolled down the window. I said, what the fuck are you doing? This is why I sound like this. And he said, well, I said, just fucking, I need to get in here. And how are you going to get out of there? Oh, we can get it. Then get out right now. Show me. And he gets in the truck, and the wheels start spinning, and all the grass was green, and he's digging the ruts. And I said, no, because see, now they've dumped the gravel because they dumped the gravel so the trailer wouldn't be heavy. But I said, no, you can't pull forward. He's trying to pull forward in between my mailbox and the French drain and my fucking gate opening apparatus and past the fucking tree up a hill in wet ground. I said, no, don't back up. Don't pull forward. Look at the grass. He backs up. When he backs up, the fucking trailer acts like a goddamn smoothing apparatus. You fucking smooth icing on a cake and just smooths all the goddamn gravel off the fucking tarp into the grass on the other side. Motherfucker, no! You know, now I'm fucking, as hard as I can, I'm punching the fucking steering wheel in the truck, screaming, fuck, at the top of my lungs. While now they're frantic and he pulls back up and now they're trying to unscrew the trailer. They're going to put the trailer back one way to pull the truck up so at least I can get off the fucking road. But now they're unscrewing the thing like a goddamn spinning a plate on the Ed Sullivan Show. I said, fuck! So I hit the gas and I go up the hill and I turn into my neighbor's drive because he's got a flat area where I can turn around. And I come back and sit at the end of his drive until I see now the truck, they get the trailer off and the truck lurches forward and at least the driveway is clear. Now the trailer's on one side of the drive, on top of the gravel, all over the fucking side of the road or side of the drive. And the other side, the truck is all the wheels. And I go down there when I pull up. How the fuck was this a good? How the fuck did you fuck? Basically was what I said. And then I pulled on up and went in the house, and this was 11 o'clock in the morning. I didn't speak to them the rest of the day. They weren't done till 6 o'clock. Because besides finishing putting the gravel in the French drain, now they had to smooth out, pick up, tamp down, rake over all the shit that they had done, which took the better part of the day. And I've still got brown strips, obviously, because now we put the grass seed down. And that's going to take a while. The Monroes. So the twist ending. I thought it was going to be the interlopers from out of state. Instead, it was the people that came to fix the fucking area.
Had you ever yelled at the Monroes like that before?
I have never yelled at the Monroes before because they've made innocent mistakes that you make when you have the IQ of a fucking energy efficient light bulb. But no, they've never just, no, I couldn't, I said, well, how the fuck did you even do this on purpose? You could get an experienced driver. Because at that point, they had not made a single mark in anything, in any of the yard anywhere, to get sideways across that driveway. My neighbor in the back, Stunning Steve Bradshaw, will get a kick out of that because he sees the lay of the land. He'll feel my pain.
Is his driveway done?
Say again?
Is his driveway done?
No, he's in a subdivision in the back. All of his shit is fucking brand new. They sod those things. The grass looks like AstroTurf back there because it's all sod. I started with ground. And I continue to have ground. It's like this one time a woman asked me, would you like a cup of coffee? Sure. I took a sip. I said, Jesus Christ, that tastes like mud. She said, well, it was ground this morning.
Coffee humor from a man who hates coffee more than anything in the world.
That's why it tastes like mud. By the way, I want to correct you on something.
Uh-oh.
Well, we had a debate about this. My peanuts, I've come to find out, are recyclable. My packing peanuts that we use at Cornette's Collectibles are recyclable. I looked at the bag, and it says biodegradable and recyclable.
Well, the question isn't if they are recyclable. And if they are, my cap off to you.
Well, you were telling me I was going to kill the dolphins or something.
Well, yeah, you still may. My question is, the people who pick up your recycling, do they pick them up?
Well, no, I don't fucking throw them away. I pack them in boxes and send them to the fine folks that order the Cornette's Collectibles. It's their job to recycle them.
And the people are so good at following directions and doing what they're supposed to do to help the environment. Why don't we just
I have no reason to believe that our people would be so callous as to just throw what are they going to do? Take the bag of peanuts and just throw them willy-nilly into the ocean and poison a bunch of fucking manatees?
I hate the peanuts. Because once you open something with them, a few pop out, then you have to get them, then more fall out. The kids see them, they want to play with them, they start ripping them, they make a mess.
Oh, golly. So just deprive your children of a little joy because you don't want to run the vacuum cleaner once in a while. The kid,
you vacuum up the styrofoam?
Yes. Well, not if it's an entire large peanut, because then you can just easily pick it up with your fingers. But if there's a few styrofoam pieces, then I'll just vacuum it right up, and it'll be right as rain, and the kids can play with the peanut. The kids love the taste of the peanuts, too.
No, they don't eat the peanut.
As a matter of fact, folks, if you order from Cornette's Collectibles, feed the peanuts to the kids. They'll love you forever.
Do not do that.
Shut them up, too.
Do not do that.
Their mouths will get dry, and they won't be as talkative.
Feed them to no one. Jesus Christ.
And by the way, now you don't want to feed people? What's the matter with you? By the way, if you have ordered from JimCornette.com during Action Figure Armageddon, I'll have you know that right now, I have signed and packed, as we speak here today, I have signed and packed up, and the feather bottoms are in possession of, and they either have been shipped and delivered or are about to be shipped, of the first 500 figures. In 2 weeks from the on-sale date, I am flying past the time that it took me under normal circumstances when I was a one-man band like Rocky the Ramone. So, folks, it can happen to you. We're still a number of weeks away from the finish of this project. Don't panic if you don't get yours in the next couple of days, because I said the first 500, there's 2,000 more to go. But we're holding up. The feather bottoms are handling stress well. The only problem, I wish they lived closer, because I've packed up Black Beauty, all I could get in a Ford Expedition. Hotchkiss, on behalf of his poor aunt and uncle, who, as you know, have the disability, he drives a minivan. We've been loading those things up and popping them back and forth to southern Indiana. We're thinking about petitioning the Attorney General of the state over here in Frankfurt to see if he'll grant clemency on that one deal, and they could actually move to Kentucky and be closer to me.
What deal is that?
I can't. Well, anyway, so what do you got for us today on the program, Brian?
Well, we have questions, we have reviews, shenanigans, maybe a song or two. Before we get going too far, though...
Overture, curtain lights, this is it, the night of nights. No more rehearsing and nursing of parts. We know every part by heart. Overture. I'm sorry.
All right. When you think about Broadway, I guess some of those names would have worked for Vince McMahon. Rogers and Hammerstein, that works. It's just last names. And Jim...
Wait a minute, and I wonder if, you know what? If we could find a Rogers... he could sign Hammerstone, and then they could come out kicking like the Rockettes and singing and writing lyrics. Anybody out there named Rogers needs a job?
Are there any Rogers in wrestling anymore? When was the last time you heard the name Rogers used?
Very interesting. Of course, Roy Rogers.
Well, that doesn't count. Different spelling.
First ring name of Johnny Rich, but I don't know. Well, and there's no Dale Evans either, so you got that.
Well, Jim, before we get going too far, let me ask you one question at the top because it relates to the silly little opening I did there. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Jay in San Antonio, a popular topic this week. As you no doubt have heard, another wrestler's name has been Vincified. This time it is Austin Theory. He will now be going by simply Theory. My question is, does Theory pass the name test? And let's get your general thoughts on a promising wrestler having his name changed all of a sudden.
Oh, my God. Well, no, Theory doesn't pass a test as a name. Much less the name test. Theory is not... And I mean, it almost begs a question mark too, doesn't it? So that it's like theory? It's like, are you
yeah, really?
So when you talk about him, when you say theory, are you asking for a hypothesis from the person you're speaking to, or are you talking about a wrestler?
Here we have on the couch to promote WrestleMania. Here is the wrestler Theory.
Theory. Because he's unproven? Is that what the... I mean,
that's good.
Hold on. Wait a minute. I'm actually going to... I got to find it. Hold on. Theatrical, therefrom, therein, thine. Wait, I've gone too far. Oh, wait. I've still gone too far with therein. Theosophy... theosophy is
that a Dustin Rhodes
religious
word?
Philosophy.
Oh.
Theosophy. Theory. The definition of theory is systematically organized knowledge, a set of assumptions or statements devised to explain a phenomenon or class of phenomena, or abstract reasoning, speculation, or a set of rules or principles for the study or practice of an art or discipline, or an assumption, conjecture.
Sounds like a wrestler.
And I mean, it's not even, they use the excuse, I guess, well, because Steve Austin pissed us off and did that and made Vince's knees bend the wrong way at WrestleMania. We're not going to call myself. What the? Oh, Christ on a cracker.
How did they sell it to him? That's the question. I mean, how cheery and rosy did they try to present it? Like, this is a great idea. Of course we're going to do this. Well, we were just thinking, Austin is such a... Like, what do they say? And do they present it like, this is for the best? Or they present it like, it's crazy, we know, just do it?
Well, no, I'm pretty sure most of them, I know Laurinaitis finds the silver lining in every dark cloud. He'll just smile right at you. And yes, this fucking armadillo shit tastes lovely on crackers. As a matter of fact, that's why some of the guys in TNA actually used to like when I produced their matches, actually in the WWF too, back in those days, because I would go to them and say, okay, look, here's what they want. Now, can we all chip in and find a way to make this palatable? But, I don't know how, in what fashion they would put the cheerful face on. We're just going to call you Theory after we've already established you under a name, and we're not replacing your first name. We're just not giving you another one, and it doesn't make any sense to call someone Theory. If somebody thinks it sounds cool, I don't know. But again, when they get to the point, and he's being pushed heavily, but when they get to the point where he's in a main event of a pay-per-view, and just the outside advertising, like you mentioned, if introduction on a news program, if nothing else, it's just fucking odd. And Vince has painted himself into a corner on more than one occasion when a guy that he gave a stupid name to actually did start getting over and get over. See, H triple. We'll talk about that later on, maybe. But so I don't know why they paint themselves in this position. And I don't know why he thinks that that's somehow cool. I get, someone Cher, Madonna,
And those are first names.
Well, yes. Because, if you're famous, if you're so famous that you are known by your first name, that's more impressive than if you're so famous you're known by your last name, Nixon. But when it's not really an actual name that people would recognize as a name to begin with, and then there's no explanation or backstory as to why this is indeed your name, but Vince loves it.
So how does it sound as a future WrestleMania main event? Theory versus Riddle.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, there's the corner. You just found the corner that they've painted themselves in with these guys. Because for whatever reason, I think he's the shits, but whatever reason people like Riddle, he'll be getting big matches in the future. And Theory's a prodigy. So we can see Theory versus Riddle with their...
It's like a Batman episode.
Special referee Enigma.
No, he went to AEW. They can't get the Enigma anymore.
No, AEW got Two-Face.
I thought he went to WWE. Depends who you talk to. But, yeah, I feel bad. You know what? The two things that they've saddled him with, he has a world of talent, and it's undeniable. But the name, and I think also the outfit, is kind of ridiculous. I think he needs something that a little less silly, in my eyes. He does
a little less like he came to be a male stripper at a fucking teenage bachelorette party.
I guess that's a way to look at it.
I mean, they can change his clothes quicker and easier than they can change his name again. Now that they've already changed it once to begin with, so that and honestly, I hate it. He's going to be a star unless he gets injured some kind of way or he's a mental incompetent and we don't know it because he's just talented as all shit. But then also the fucking thing, but does he get the wrong kind of heat? Not heel heat, but teacher's pet heat from the core audience for being, Vince's project or Vince's protege or whatever he has been to Vince on television. I'd hate to see that, where they boo him out of the building for the wrong reason. And then, because then the writers will be tempted or teased to turn him into a fucking bumbling putz, which will kill him deader than 4 o'clock. We'll see.
We will see. And of course, death is the ultimate end. You don't want that. But you do want a good night's rest.
Well, you are exactly correct on those things. Now, would you like to narrow it down for me between Helix and Beam?
Oh, well, that's right. But what I meant is maybe instead of landing on a canvas in a ring that could possibly give you a staph infection, he wants to land on a cloud that he will get, one way or another, he will get there, but he will be sleeping on a cloud.
He will be sleeping on a mushroom cloud of a Segway. As we've just blown that motherfucker sky high. Folks, I'll tell you this right now. We've talked so many times about our friends at Helix and the Helix mattresses, the folks at helixsleep.com. They make a fantastic mattress that everybody should spend the fucking eternity on. Be buried on this thing. Just have them cut off a chunk of your Helix Sleep mattress and put it in the bottom of the coffin, and you'll sleep through the afterlife just as well as you won't be spinning in your grave. Even when your children become drug addicts and your wife marries the pool boy, you'll be sleeping good, and you'll sleep good before the afterlife in the current life. The present life on the Helix Sleep mattress, if you go to helixsleep.com, they've got a quiz. It takes 2 minutes to complete. And it matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Soft, medium, and firm mattresses, cool-down mattresses, spinal alignment mattresses, a Helix Plus mattress for the plus-size sleepers, the McGuire twins in our audience. And you answer these questions, like I said, 2 minutes. They'll ask you, how many people do you intend to sleep with on this mattress over the course of its life? And in what sexual positions do you plan to undertake with these people? And you answer those, and then possibly, if possible, you can take pictures of yourself and your significant other having the relations on your current mattress, so they make sure they absolutely know how much stress this thing's going to be under. You remember taking that quiz, Brian, don't you?
There are no photos required, and we encourage you to keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself.
I said 15 or 20.
It was not required.
Well, it wasn't mandatory, but they didn't say we couldn't. Anyway, once they know exactly how this mattress is going to be used and or abused, then they'll tell you which one matches up with you best, and then you just order the dadgum thing. HelixSleep.com. They got a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even come and pick it up for you if you don't love it. When you give it to them, make sure you turn the side with the stains to the bottom so they don't see it until they get it in the truck. They've even got financing options and flexible payment plans, so a great night's sleep is never far away. And you can be flexible with your payments as long as you make them. If you stop making them, then they're going to get stiff with you. And they're going to come and jerk you off that mattress and slap you around about the head and face, take it right out and haul it right out the front door.
No, that's not how it works. They will just...
And they'll put a sign on the front yard that says, this motherfucker's cheap bastard didn't pay for his mattress. We repossessed his Helix. Because they treat you good. How can you treat somebody like that treats you so good?
For the record, I do not believe any of that is actually how it transpires. You don't have to fear some Helix strongmen coming into your house and roughing you and your family up.
No, I didn't say they were strong men. But also, who knows? They may be some independent contractors. They may not be affiliated with Helix. They'll just pull up in an unmarked panel van, come in your house and take your mattress.
No one will do that. There'll be no unaffiliated strongmen coming to your house, ladies and gentlemen. But you will have a good night's sleep, and you'll sleep better knowing that no one will be coming to your house.
Yes, it will not happen until you turn your back. Folks, go to helixsleep.com/JCE because they're offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows. You can put your head underneath the pillow and grip it around your ears so you won't see or hear what's going on in the world today. That's what they'll do for you. $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows. Up to that for our listeners, because they're in the club at helixsleep.com/JCE and take that quiz and send them some pictures also. Just let them know what's going to go on this mattress, because that way they can reinforce it in the right spots.
They neither need nor want your pictures, but we thank our friends at Helix Sleep for sponsoring the show here today. But Jim, let's get through all this WWE stuff while we can. In terms of reviews, did you watch any of SmackDown?
No. I tried. I started SmackDown. I DVR'd it, and I started, and I said, I'm going to put it on not the fast on-screen speed search, but the one where you can tell who's there and what's happening, and I'm going to stop when I see someone or something that might interest me. And about halfway through the show, No, it gets better. Halfway through the show, I saw Charlotte. See, now I'll say that one. Halfway through the show, I saw Charlotte. She was selling she-cells by the seashore.
I knew it.
And then, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? That will never be answered, folks, because the Woodchucks Union went on strike. So, Charlotte was in the ring, and as I stopped it, she basically took the fucking interviewer down, who I've never seen before in my life, a male interviewer.
He's a wrestler. They had a show-long storyline where I think his name is Drew Gulag. It's either Gulag or Gulag. I'm not sure. But Drew Gulag... I
thought his first name was Archipelago.
No, but this guy...
That's for the literary fans out there today. You're not going to get a lot of fucking sense out of me today. I'm in one of those moods. Go ahead. Drew Gulag.
They had a show-long storyline where Gulag was becoming an announcer. They said, it's his debut. He's trying out, and he did some backstage interviews. And I guess it was all to set up him being beat up by Charlotte Flair.
He made it for an hour. The brand new announcer made it for an hour before he was attacked by a wrestler. Why didn't they just figure eight one of the regular announcers? Who are the regular announcers on that show? I don't listen to them.
Pat McAfee.
Well, I listen to McAfee. I forgot. It's Raw, I guess I don't listen to.
And Cole.
I don't listen to Michael that much.
Yeah, no one can.
Well, because everybody else sounds like him. So I think it's somebody else that sounds like Michael Cole, and I don't listen to him. Then I found out it was Michael Cole. Well, that's why it sounded like him. So I stopped, and she figure-8'd the announcer, and then I said I could go back, but why? And I went to find something. There was no Brock Lesnar. There was no Paul Heyman. SmackDown. Yeah, I smacked it down.
Did you see the Ghost of Frankenstein on Svengoolie this week?
That I saw, by cracky.
All right. Do we have a review of that?
I'm just, you know what?
A very interesting cast. A tremendous cast, actually.
Well, yeah, and also I always thought ever since I was a kid, I would love to see a wrestler with the broken neck, like Igor, right? Where his neck was already broken, and it's like, it's hard as a rock. So of course, you'd have to fucking figure out how to put the big lump in the side of the neck and everything. But once there you go, he comes in the ring, his head's at a 90-degree angle, there's a big lump sticking out of his neck, and you can't hurt him because his neck's hard as a rock now.
You could have sold that to Jim Herd.
Well, they didn't have the rights to the Universal catalog at the time.
He wanted to do the Hunchbacks, remember?
Well, yeah, but that's a whole different thing. See, when you're a hunchback, you got the hump on your back. But when you're Igor, the assistant of the mad scientist, you got the hump in your neck. See, you can't misplace your humps. You've always got to know exactly where your humps are and what they're doing.
And you saw who played Igor in the film, right?
Bela Lugosi.
Right?
Yes. Same as it was when they shot it 70 years ago. Why are you trying to change it now?
It's just a few years a few years before Ed Wood got his hands on him and made some classic cinema.
No, actually, that was
about 10 years later.
14 years before Mr. Lugosi's ultimate demise.
Well, before we get to our demise, let's get through a few of the reviews, because we did have a lot of AEW, and some of it was really something.
Yeah, something. That's a word.
That's a word. That could be the name of a wrestler nowadays in WWE. Theory versus something. But speaking of something, AEW Friday night in a different time slot had AEW Rampage, and I guess if you consider the World Championship to be the top thing in AEW, a really big match for AEW, and some other stuff too. What did you think of Rampage?
This time, instead of trying to critique matches blow by blow, I just decided I was going to write down some random thoughts on these contests. Because the opening match was a 6-man tag. Some might call it a trios match. 6-man tag team match. Billy and the Guns. They're opening Friday for Benny and the Jets. But Billy and the Guns, they're now my favorite 3-man team against Moxley, Danielson, and Yuta. And the whole Blackpool Combat Club thing.
Fight Club.
Combat. I thought it was Blackpool Combat Club.
I thought it was Blackpool Fight Club. Is it Combat Club?
Well, fuck. I don't look it up before I get to it again.
Okay.
Because my first thought was, I'm writing these things down. I'm trying to figure out why either one of the young guns isn't in Wheeler Yuta's spot.
You were right. It's Combat Club.
Thank you. Physically, athletically, personality-wise, they look and act like professional wrestlers. They got something. Yuta comes out there in those god-awful, and by the way, not only the god-awful tights, but he's not wearing trunks over the tights, which makes somehow it look even more like somebody's fucking ballet tights or something gone wrong. But does it pass for personality now when people allow you to to be beaten insensible by all their best shit and you come back because it's a work and that means you have personality? Because elsewise, I'm looking at the facials, the body language. He does moves. Do you see a star here that they're going to all this trouble over, and that fucking Moxley did everything but fucking pull a pin on a grenade and shove it up his ass?
Yes and no. Do I see a star in the traditional sense of a star in professional wrestling? No.
Do you see a star in the traditional sense of popular?
I see a star in the sense of, for the AEW audience who are into guys who, whatever you want to call it, work rate, then he could maybe fit in. As he grows older and looks a little older, hopefully gets a different wardrobe. I think for those fans who aren't interested in the angle so much, or just interested in matches where it's guys kicking the shit out of each other, and it looks really stiff because it is really stiff and these guys are feeling it, and they just want to pop up and down for the near falls. And they want to get into submissions. And he's pretty crafty in the ring, and I think with those fans, he'll get over pretty big. But I don't think he has much appeal beyond that. At least right now, he hasn't shown it. And he hasn't shown it in promos. He hasn't shown it in the ring. But as far as if you want to just sit back and enjoy a wrestling match in the modern sense, I could see those fans liking him.
Well, other random thoughts. Bryan Danielson was fucking brilliant as the top single heel in this company. For a few weeks there, a few bright, shining weeks, he was money. You could put him in pay-per-view matches. He would move the needle. He would make a difference. If he had continued in that path, he would have probably made a bigger difference in the ratings because it was so good. And now he's in a crowd, and all the attention is going on Captain Blando. Somebody called him Wheeler Useless. I may steal that if they keep doing this for very much longer. I'm going to get fed up. Billy Gunn looks like Andre next to this entire roster, and it seems as good as he ever was. He's a fucking freak. Did you see the flying splash into the corner thing? The Billy Gunn stinger splash. Boom, nimble. When Billy Gunn was in the ring next to Moxley, it looked like a WWE superstar doing a special charity appearance feeding the homeless. Did you see that?
That wasn't my exact thought, but I saw what you're referencing, yes.
Colton Gunn has he's got such a leap on his drop kick, he didn't take off in time on one of them. He's got to take off before the guy even gets to the ropes so that he's got the time to go up and float and do a full extension. That's how good his jump is. Austin Gunn is my hero. He took a bump for the fucking hot tag that I loved. Moxley beat everybody up and then tagged Yuta, who did a crossbody off the fucking top. And then suddenly, everybody disappeared. Billy caught Moxley and Danielson with a double clothesline, and they take a double clothesline and just roll out and disappears. And now Billy's in there with Yuta, and they do some shit to showcase Yuta, and then everybody's still gone, and then Billy goes for the famouser, and Yuta foils it and rolls him up for the 3 count, and the baby faces on the floor suddenly are live and grab the heels. They're now actually giving people in wrestling matches solos. I've been noticing this more and more, where a multiple person a tag team match or a 6-man tag, there's a bunch of people involved. Sometimes they'll take a bump and roll out on the floor and stay there for 2 minutes selling off the ring, out of everybody's sight. Sometimes they'll do an offensive move and do the same thing. We saw that the other night, remember? And then they've disappeared. So they leave the fucking ring to just 2 people, and there's no... It's like a solo. On stage, there's no element of still a tag match or credibility that the partners would just suddenly disappear for minutes at a time over nothing. And they're doing that now. But Billy put Wheeler Yuta over.
That's what it's all been about the last few weeks, is putting Wheeler Yuta over.
You
right?
got to give them credit. When they decide to do something, they're going to do it. Even when every lick of knowledge and common sense would tell you otherwise. Adam Page became world champion right after they signed CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, the best singles wrestler in the world, for 6 weeks there when they let him be. So when they make their decision, I used to get mad at Vince for changing his mind every goddamn day. So Tony's decided he's never going to change his at all. There's 15 guys on their roster that a push like this would help both sides, the talent and their business. This one is not going to make any bit of difference for the business. They're going to do same ratings, same pay-per-view, same streaming, same everything. But it's doing wonders for Wheeler Yuta. But there's several people they could go to these lengths for, and it would help both. But meanwhile, Powerhouse Hobbs gets punked out by everybody.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
So then on this program, did you have any other further thoughts? I didn't mean to move ahead of you.
No, that's quite all right, but since you've asked.
That's quite all right.
2 thoughts, really. One, I think it's ridiculous if it's a 1-hour show and you're trying to squeeze stuff in. Why did Danielson need an entrance, and then Yuta and Regal, and then Moxley had to come through the audience? That's a bit much.
Well, but look at what else they had on this show. The less we saw of it, the better. Go ahead.
My second thought was, I'm watching Billy Gunn. I'm 42 years old. If whatever he's taking is fucking legal, I want to take it. What the fuck is he? I want to look like that. Can you imagine what my neighbors will think if I walk out looking like that? He's older than me. What the fuck? I want to do that.
He's older than you? What the fuck? Look how old he's almost as old as me.
What the fuck? I don't know if it's testosterone or what, but I need that.
Well, regardless, it's genetics also, and a lot of hard work, because they ain't made chemicals that are that good for that long unless you've got something else to work with.
They also ain't made proteins that produce muscles like that I've ever fucking seen. Whatever it is, God bless you, but I want to know because I want to do it.
Like Mama Cornette used to say, he's eating plenty of his meat and potatoes. And speaking of meat and potatoes,
I knew that was
we segue. I didn't even mean to do that. The Butcher beat a jobber with a tater. The Butcher now has a single match coming up, obviously. So therefore, he has to have his first ever, that we're aware of, singles win in AEW, and he beat some job guy to do it.
I thought it was Jelly Nutella at first. My first thought was, oh man, they kept Jelly Nutella and he got into better shape. And it was just some other guy. But yeah, you know what?
Well, that's the spot that Jelly filled, was some other guy. And now they got some other guy.
And give them credit again. The Butcher's getting the match with Wardlow. They announced it last week. They're giving him a quick win here on the show to talk about it during his match and build up to next week's show. And maybe on the bullshit show, but at least they're doing something right.
Well, but again, cart before horse. Shouldn't they have established this guy in some respect as anything at all? Has he ever had a singles match before they decide to put him? MJF gives a ton of money, a big fat wallet, to whoever the fuck he paid off.
Andrade's
Andre's house of pancakes. I don't fucking know. So he pays Andre a lot of money for a guy that's never had a singles match, much less won one. But all right, at least they're trying. what happened next actually interests me. And I can't wait to see this for once. Dustin Rhodes was out there and challenged CM Punk. And he did a heck of a promo to do it. And the people were into it like crazy until they found out that it wasn't going to be there that night in front of them. As soon as he said next week, they're like, oh, fuck you. Because he got them wanting to see it. But Dustin against Punk, that'll be fun for both guys. And a good match.
And a good match. That's what I was going to say.
But speaking of what didn't follow, that interview was a good match. Ruby Soho versus Robin Renegade. Should we start calling her Ruby So-So? They announced she was on a 10-match winning streak. Has she been on TV in months?
It's been a while. It seems like, at least.
So what do you think? Yeah, I started to say again, but I know then the foolishness I was about to utter because there are none. But let's say that there were people actually watching this program on purpose that actually have lives and just want to see the 2-hour wrestling program and don't want to go online and look up people's won-loss records and ain't going to sit through squash matches on YouTube, but they watch this show every week. They think they're bullshit. 10-match winning streak. She hasn't wrestled on TV 10 times. She's been here almost a year. It's ridiculous. So I wasn't going to watch this, and I didn't watch most of it, but maybe you can help me out a little bit. Tell me that I went to sleep on my Helix mattress, and I was dreaming this. The job girl, Robin Renegade, has an identical twin, and they revealed it right before they beat her. Right? Is this what they did the under the ring switch, and then the other one came out and got beat?
Well, again, this is the first time I have seen Robin Renegade. Everyone in this match is dressed like they're in a gang at a skate park. It's ridiculous. But yes, first time I saw her, and then I found out she had a twin when they revealed in the match that there was a twin under the ring. And then eventually, her and the twin were both foiled by Ruby Soho.
So they've wasted the classic reveal of the twin. What was it? Plastic surgery? I mean, I'm not saying that either whatever the other Renegade's name is, or Robin Renegade, either one needs to be, I don't know, pushed right now. But you would think if you had twins, you'd either make them a tag team right off the bat, or you would keep it the secret that they were twins until the twin reveal, which has been done, I don't know, 50 fucking times in the wrestling business over the last 100 years. And that usually leads to the twins at least winning that particular match. But they switched and then both got beat. Well, should we talk about the Easter death match?
That is definitely something that we've heard a lot of listeners request your thoughts on.
Well, actually, I feel like that old Seinfeld fucking episode where his dentist is converting from Christianity to Judaism. And Seinfeld, Jerry goes to the rabbi or the confession or one of those people. He says,
it was the rabbi.
It was the rabbi. And he says, well, I'm upset about this. I don't think he's genuine. He said, why not? Are you offended as a Jewish person? No, I'm offended as a comedian. He gets all the good jokes now. I wasn't offended because I think the backstory of every religion, as we know, is complete caca and ridiculous. And I would have been more offended myself personally if they had abused a bunny rabbit on Easter Sunday or Easter weekend. But a lot of the people out there who are into that type of thing saw a correlation between this stupid garbage death match that's not a Texas death match. Again, they advertised it as a Texas death match because they're in Texas, even though there was no reason to have this match between these two participants because Paige has beaten Cole like a rented mule every time they've been involved. And the rules were not of a Texas death match. It's whatever the fuck they call a Texas death match now, them and New Japan, but it wasn't Texas death match rules. Same thing as last time. It was an excuse to have another outlaw garbage death match on television and risk, for absolutely no productive reason, their goddamn television outlet. But at the climactic moment of it, we'll break it down in more excruciating detail later. But the big thing that everybody was offended by, they got barbed wire that was introduced when it was wrapped around a chair. They had a barbed wire chair, and Paige, I believe it was, the genius and replacement for Einstein that he is, jerked the barbed wire off the chair so that he could wrap it around his arm, so that he could clothesline it. Brian, have you ever wanted to really hurt somebody physically and thought, well, the best way to do that is to get some sharp fucking barbed wire, wrap it around my own arm, and then hit him with a clothesline?
No, that's not the method I would use, no.
Okay, but anyway, but when he did that, then he ended up taking the barbed wire and putting it on Adam Cole's head in such a fashion as to recall I believe, and I've seen this on the children's Easter specials and things around Christmas time. Jesus apparently was given a crown of thorns to wear long about this period, right before they fixed his wagon. And so everybody noted how not only was this a garbage match that was distasteful with the blood and the stupidity of the fakery, so it was an embarrassment and insult to the wrestling business, but then they managed to get all of what religions does that take in? Catholics wouldn't have been happy about this, right?
No, Catholics, Christians.
The Christians, the Methodists, the Protestants.
Mormons.
Pretty much the Mormons, you're immune, right? You were over at having the cedar.
I wasn't offended because it doesn't affect me necessarily, but it's certainly something I would not have had done on my show, let alone a show that was taped days in advance. I would have kept that far away from my
they taped
program.
it.
I thought they did it. Did they not?
Well, I don't know. I didn't care that much. But if they taped it, that's even worse.
Let me double check on that. You know what? Let me double check.
Please double check on that. But apparently it was taken as religious depictions or whatever. But let's go back to the start of this match while you do your research on that particular point, because again, not a real Texas death match, no reason for it. They started the match when they came into the ring, Adam Cole and Adam Page.
Let me stop you right now. It was live.
It was live. Well, then the editing team is saved, but the wrestlers involved apparently decided to go into business for themselves. But they started the match swinging chairs, doing the chair fencing thing, and then right out to the floor. And again, just random thoughts. Adam Page punches like a girl. Did you see why are they all doing fake? They figure if they throw more of them and they're faster, that somehow people can't see that they're not connecting on anything and there's no steam behind them. In the first 2 minutes, they're out in the arena and up in the stands so they can try to get Tony Khan's father sued. And they do what you can do up there, which is nothing, but it's just, again, they're not even pretending to be wrestlers or wrestling anymore. This is just like when the fucking lead singer at the concert you go to goes out on the corner of the stage. Oh, it's cool. He's in the middle of the people. At least Paige is drinking beer like Stone Cold Steve Austin instead of fucking whiskey like sad sack. So that was a plus out in the crowd. Again, this is not a quote-unquote blood feud. Adam Cole has been portrayed as no threat to this guy whatsoever. So now they're just doing... I wrote stunts, but then I crossed that out because you like the word tricks with chairs and stuff. And then Paige ran Adam Cole into the chair that was wedged in the turnbuckles, and Cole takes a bump outside so he can go work his magic and get his color. So Paige, knowing that he needs to distract attention from this because apparently they're all so goddamn inept at getting juice that they have to go under the ring for 30 seconds and there's got to be a brass band playing and the dancing bears to distract everybody. Remember when Punk did it in 2 seconds and nobody saw it? Anyway, so Paige gets one of the chairs and folds it out and sits in the middle of the ring so that he can hot dog for the people while Cole is out on the floor drilling for oil. And he turned his back on the hard camera and sat with his back to, and the referee had to come over and tell him, idiot, turn around, the camera's behind you. So he gets up, walks around in a circle, picks up the chair real smooth and turns it around and sits back down in the same fucking position, except now he's facing the camera. They went to a break, and somehow in the break they set up a bunch of tables and brought a 10-foot logging chain into the ring. So now they're having a non-Texas death match, now with Tennessee chain match involved. They did some stunts on the chairs that they took some stupid bumps that were unnecessary risks. They continued having a garbage match that real stars don't have to have. Remember, random thoughts. Paige tosses 4 or 5 chairs in the ring. How many can you use? If you have your hands on a chair and you want to hit the person you're in the fight with, why don't you just go hit him with that one? Why do you need 4 more? Adam Cole got lousy color. As they said when I got into business, it looked like a pap smear. Paige goes to the top rope with his back to his moving opponent who's on the floor. Adam Cole is just taking a bump. He's out on the floor. He's on his feet. He's moving. Paige climbs to the top rope, takes his eyes off his opponent for 10 full seconds, and does a trussed backflip off the top rope to the floor. And Adam Cole, imagine that was there to catch him. How coincidental. It's preposterous. Adam Cole hit the sunrise, the Panama sunrise, on Paige on a stack of chairs. But there's no pinfalls. You've got to be down for the 10 count. So Paige beats the count. Cole's blood had dried up by that point, what he got of it. I've had better nosebleeds while I was fucking. Then Paige gives Adam Cole a super belly-to-belly off the top rope onto the pile of chairs, and he beat the count. And then they both sat in the chairs. They pulled the chairs up in front of each other and sat in them and started doing the fucking punch thing where they're just wanting to fight forever, to where they'll sit in a chair in front of a guy and they'll each take turns punching each other in the fucking face. And then they graduated to a standing hockey fight out of that. Actually, that part would have been good without the garbage match all around it, where at least they had a twist on it. Instead of punching each other while sitting in the chair, they got into it and fucking stood up and really went at it a bit. But this match was not salvageable by that point by any means. Somehow, Adam Page managed to tie Adam Cole, a supposed nearly grown man, nearly, almost, just within inches of it, to the top rope with his leather pants belt. You can't tie one of those belts in a knot tight enough to restrain anyone against their will. Rope, yes. Duct tape, yes. Handcuffs, been overused, but yes. Clothesline string, yes. Athletic tape repurposed and wound up for such an occasion, yet, but you can't tie a tight knot. So Cole has to sit there and act like he's tied up with this thing while Adam Page gets the barbed wire chair. But then, when he's got the barbed wire chair and there's Cole, helpless and immobile and tied up, but Adam Page is conflicted. Should I hit him? I know that just moments ago I gave him a super belly-to-belly off the top rope onto a pile of chairs, and I've tried to break his neck 16 times in this match. But now I got second thoughts about hitting him with his chair covered in barbed wire, so he puts the fucking chair down and goes over and unties him. Which, Adam Cole, if he was interested in getting loose, it was more than visually obvious to everybody that he could have just gone pip. But Page unties him, and Adam Cole repays his kindness with a nut shot. So now the world champion is also a complete fucking moron, as well as being not ready for his position. Because he had him where he wanted him. So then Page pulled the barbed wire off the chair and did the clothesline bit, and then gave him the barbed wire crown of thorns on Good Friday on national cable television. And then, I know a lot of people might not know what the dead eye is, but imagine that you're going to pile drive somebody, but that person stands up under you and has you upside down by your legs with your head hanging down. That's what Page calls his dead eye, where he picks and they jumped off the apron of the ring, and he gave Adam Cole a dead eye through a table to the floor and sat right on his head in the process. Both these guys now have that's ignorant and irresponsible. This doesn't take talent. But I wonder at some point if some of these guys don't think, you know what? I'll just do this shit because if I get hurt, he's going to keep paying me. I don't have to be able to wrestle. I don't have to. Those days are gone. I don't have to show up. I don't have to work. I don't even have to come and get on a plane. If I'm hospitalized myself and break my coccyx off my proboscis and I have to have surgery, or I'm in a body cast or an iron lung for a year or two, I'll still get paid because that's the way it works these days. I myself would still not like to fucking hospitalize myself. But guys did a lot less stupid shit in this business when their paycheck depended on them being able to show up and work. And it was better for everybody. Because for every guy that's taking a fucking ridiculous risk, there's another guy underneath him doing the same fucking thing, only worse, because the other guy's in control. What do you think, Brian?
I really don't have too much to add to what you said, because I didn't like it at all. I guess my only two things, I actually wrote these down. This is going to piss off AEW fans, but if you look at this objectively, you'll realize it's true. Adam Page is AEW's Drew McIntyre. And my second thought was...
Very good, by the way.
My second thought was it's fitting to do this on Good Friday because Adam Cole looks like Jesus if he stopped working out.
Oh!
And those are my two takeaways.
And the thing is, the methods of personal training are so much more advanced now than they were 2,000 years ago.
Well, it was about getting out on your feet. It was about walking around. I don't think anyone walks as much as they did 2,000 years ago.
Well, that's true. And plus, Jesus, he could walk on the water too. And the world is what, 90% ocean? So he had a whole lot more ground he could cover.
And that can't be easy. You ever try walking on sand? You ever try running on sand? It's different than being on pavement, obviously. Now imagine trying to do that on water.
I wonder if in the gladiatorial days back then, in the ancient Colosseums, if the fighters went out and trained by running on water.
No, but seriously, walking on water would probably burn more calories than walking on the sidewalk or on the boardwalk or anything.
I would think it would. Because, walking on the sidewalk or the boardwalk or parking in the parkway or parking on the driveway but driving on the parkway or everybody walk the dinosaur.
Well, there you go. But that's how they did things 2,000 years ago. And after a day like that, you're ready to get a good night's rest. As we just said, we don't think Adam Cole is working out the way they did 2,000 years ago or the way they did in 1986 or any other time. No. So maybe he has trouble getting to sleep and maybe he could use some help.
He looks like a man that sits up worried about things at night, probably about his push and his career and his shrinking physique. But folks, I'll tell you, even if you've got a great mattress, let's say you got the best mattress available out there, but that doesn't mean you're going to sleep as good as you could be sleeping, because poor sleep involved in individuals can cause weight gain, mood issues, poor mental health, lower productivity, a reduced white blood cell count. Did you know that if you don't sleep at least 6 to 7 hours a night, it will reduce your white blood cell count? And then those dastardly pink and red and purple and whatever other colors you've got in your blood cells they'll take over. Because the white blood cells protect our body against illness and diseases.
Yes.
Viruses and bacteria and such. This is not a racial thing. It's been proven.
What?
And not many people realize that the white blood cells, very important.
Oh, God.
Having a consistent nighttime routine is important, because a better tomorrow, Brian, as Mama Cornette used to say, starts tonight. But right now, folks, you will be assured of a good night's sleep, sleeping like a baby. That's right, waking up once an hour, pissing the bed, and screaming. But you will sleep like a contented adult, which is even better, on Beam Dream. Beam is the world's most innovative functional wellness brand with unique products for everything from sleep to recovery. And Dream, the Dream Powder, is their best-selling healthy hot cocoa that contains natural sleep-promoting premium ingredients, triple lab-tested, no THC, but you'll wake up feeling refreshed. Folks, 98% of the people surveyed fall asleep faster when taking Beam Dream, and 99% of people experience better sleep quality. 1% of the people are interviewed on the Learning Channel about their experiences, which include marmalade skies and tangerine dreams. Folks, you can just mix the Beam Dream into hot water or milk. Stir and enjoy it 30 minutes before bedtime. Remember, 30 minutes before bedtime. Don't operate machinery on this stuff. Don't brush your teeth on this stuff. Whatever you do,
well, you can brush your teeth.
Don't speak to your spouse after you take the Beam Dream. Don't sign any documents, and don't plan any wills or other real estate transactions. But just 30 minutes before bedtime, mix this stuff into hot water or milk and stir, and boom goes the dynamite, and out go your lights. And when you are resuscitated, folks, I'm telling you what, when they bring you back, remember in the old days when a heel used the sleeper for his finish, and the wake up wasn't automatic. Once you got put to sleep, then the heel had to wake you up. And sometimes if the heel didn't want to wake the guy up, then the announcer's screaming, oh my God, somebody's got to wake him up. His brain is going without blood. He'll be permanently damaged. And then the babyface would run in that knew the secrets of the sleeper, and he would massage the neck and slap it in the right place. And then the heel would get mad and beat that babyface up. Well, here's what you can do, folks. Instead of getting brain damage that way, just drink some Beam, and you'll go to sleep and you'll love it. And if you don't love it, you'll get your money back. Now, here's the thing. Don't try to stay awake on purpose just to get your money back. Drink the Beam in good faith. It's hard to fight once you drink it, you're probably gone anyway. But if you try to fight it and stay awake just to get your money back, well, that's not fair.
Don't fight anything. And remember, it's safe to use, and it's best to be used the way they recommend, 30 minutes before you're ready to go to sleep. Have a nice cup of Beam.
That's right. Mix it into hot water or milk, stir, and enjoy 30 minutes before bedtime. Go in the bedroom, lock the deadbolt that's been previously installed on the inside of your bedroom door.
What?
Take the key, put it in the slot so that your significant other that is keeping an eye on you through this process will have the key so you can't get out, and enjoy your night's sleep. For a limited time right now, you can get $20 off when you go to beamorganics.com. That's BEAM organics.com/JCE and use the code JCE at checkout. That's beamorganics.com/JCE. Use the code JCE for $20 off. Folks, I'm telling you, with Beam, you'll sleep like a baby and wake up starting fresh, literally starting fresh. You'll have no memory of anything you've ever done.
You will have
in your
memory.
life.
That's not true. You will have great memory and, of course, a great night's sleep with Beam.
Starting fresh, refreshed. That's what it is. You'll be refreshed. It's like you're rebooting yourself. You'll learn everything all over again. It'll be fine. Learn to walk, talk, crawl.
You will remember the basic things you know. You will not lose any of these skills.
Yeah, no, breathing is automatic. Breathing is automatic, and I think jacking off, too. I think that's pretty much an autopilot thing. Everything else you might need some coaching on just after the first night of Beam.
Once again, it is healthy and safe. Beam, I'm not going to let it end with you saying any of these things.
Don't let it end this way.
It's going to end on a positive note, just like you will every night, drinking your Beam 30 minutes before bed.
It'll bring you to the most positive end you've ever experienced. Then people, the next day at the service, the people will be going, oh, that's the most positive end that he ever had.
Have a safe night's sleep with Beam. Have a safe night's sleep with Beam.
All right, if you don't stop being so silly now with our sponsor spots, these people will quit sponsoring our fine programs. You got to give this information out straight like I do.
I'll try that next time. We'll see how that works. Well, let's talk about how other things work.
Well,
unfortunately, we're not...
That's a deep subject, as Mama Cornette used to say.
The well?
Yeah, you'd say, well, and she'd say, that's a deep subject.
Well, hopefully that subject doesn't run dry, and we're not going to run dry of AEW content here this week. Because
does anybody have a well anymore at their home?
Oh, there are still some people. There are still some people off the beaten path who have wells, of course. But
what did that path do to get beaten like that? Did it misbehave?
That's a good question.
Or is it just a glutton for punishment?
It's now an abused path, actually. But Jim, let's get to the rest of AEW's content from the past week, because I know you watched Battle of the Belts.
Yeah, speaking of an abused path, I was beaten into submission on Friday night and Saturday night by AEW. This was Saturday night at 8 o'clock on national cable television, and I know that Saturday is not the night that it once was for television in the era of the great one, Jackie Gleason. However, this was they've just given up. They've just given up. The one that everybody's talking about was the first one, and they didn't need to front load this program because it's 8 o'clock at night. They've got a youthful audience. I'm the only one drooping off by 8:45, right? But they put the one that people were going to talk about on first. And by the way, is it Battle of the Belts or is it Bring Your Own Belts? I think we should AEW BYOB, Bring Your Own Belts. Tony stole this from Joe Koff's syndicated specials from Florida in the 80s. Were every match on those specials for a championship of some kind, or was it just a big card and the main matches were for the titles?
From the best that I remember, and of course a couple of those were quite memorable, especially the second one with the Wyndham match, it was a card of big matches with the NWA World Championship as the main event being the belt that they were battling over.
Yes.
Now, that's not to say there weren't other belts decided on the show, but that wasn't the focus.
But this is just, let's figure out who's a champion of some kind and put them on this show because we have to fulfill this programming commitment. This is a 1 hour long, not as exciting version of the show they do on Friday nights. That's a 1 hour long, not as exciting version of the show they do on Wednesday nights. So, having said that, Sammy Guevara, with his main squeeze, as gorgeous Jimmy Garvin would say, Ty Conti against Scorpio Sky, with his main squeeze is the other Page and Dan Lambert for the TV title. Again, random thoughts. Ty has a great bitch face. Ty Conti has facials perfect for a heel woman. You want to just fucking put your foot through the TV screen. I don't know whether she's going to be able to ever work or not, but she got great facials. Scorpio Sky did the windmilling fake punches, even worse than the other ones that I just talked about here a little while ago. I don't know why. Again, I could throw one that looks real, or I can throw 20 that come nowhere near the target and look like they got no steam behind them, and the guy's covering up, and that makes it good somehow. Dueling chants, let's go Sammy, and Sammy sucks. So the party's over. And also the biggest heel in AEW, because he's the one that actually tells them the shit they don't want to hear, old Dan Lambert. He's on the other side of this, and the people are booing Sammy and Ty. So the whole match, I didn't think had any oomph. They did some kind of fucked up move on the apron that almost killed them both for a break spot. And after they did it, they went to break in 5 seconds. It's like the announcer, like, oh my God, that could have killed both men. We'll be right back. Did you see when they came back from the break, Sammy got up on the top turnbuckle and did a backflip off the top rope to the floor on both heels, but went in between them and landed on his face. And they fell down, and he popped up and sold nothing after he just did a backflip and landed on the ground on his fucking face. This guy he's another one. He's a complete moron. He's got talent that he doesn't know what to do with. That's worse than not having it at all. Remember when we first saw, hey, he's got talent. Hey, he's got the face. Hey, he's got a promo. Hey, he's a good heel. Now he's gone out of his mind, and he's a complete moron. And he's wasting all his talent doing stupid, preposterous shit that's going to put him in a wheelchair. And he tried a springboard double jump cutter and slipped and fell right at Sky's feet, and Sky went down anyway. And then Paige Van Zant and Ty Conti got in a sloppy hockey fight, and Sammy, the babyface, gave the heel, Sky, a nut shot, and then hit his finish on him 1, 2, 3. So the babyface fucked the heel with a nut shot and celebrates with his heat-getting bitch-faced girl manager by tangling tongues with her on camera, looking like two anteaters going at it. Your thoughts?
The kissing was pretty over the top. I don't think I've ever seen it so graphic on wrestling, where it's just right in there and you're seeing everything for a while.
And I'll tell you what, Ty's number 2 molar on the right side has a bad cavity that needs to be treated.
This definitely raises the question, what was the point of Scorpio Sky winning the belt a few weeks back? Sammy's now a heel. You say, he's the babyface. No, he's a heel now.
He is now.
Because him and Ty Conti are running out there. They're always like they're on spring break. Like they're kids on spring break. They're dressed like it. They're doing crazy shit. But they're not cheerable. The only thing you would cheer is if he's doing a cannonball in the air while spinning around. You'll cheer that. The TNT title has never meant less. The Scorpio Sky title reign didn't do anything to help it. It's really lost a lot of steam since Miro, quite frankly. We'll see what happens. You say Dan Lambert's the biggest heel there. Dan Lambert's the male Vicky Guerrero. I don't think the fans care one way or another about him being out there. I did see a promo after the match with Ethan Page, and a lot of people pointed it out. He's the one guy there that if they did want to do something, he could probably pull it off, but it's Scorpio Sky and it's Lambert running his mouth, and I think people are kind of tired of it all.
I am.
And it means your secondary title means Not that much right now. You got to do something else with it.
Well, but now, secondary title, which one? Because now there's more titles, and we got the Ring of Honor title now. And Jonathan Gresham.
That's true.
And I haven't seen a lot of Jonathan Gresham. I want and have wanted to like him because I saw some clips of him and Jay Lethal when they were a team and they were doing some good stuff. I don't have a problem with Gresham's athleticism. He is vertically challenged, but he's wide, he's strong. But there's no oomph, there's no personality, he's a little straight ahead. He reminds me of kind of like Dean Malenko. And that's good in some ways and not so good in other ways if you're a world heavyweight champion of something. But he was challenged here by Dalton Castle, who's a former ROH champion. It's back. I was not watching the promotion at that point in time. I've heard about Dalton Castle. I've heard about a flamboyant entrance. I heard about the boys. I'd never seen it. Now I've seen it. I got to be honest with you. I've said I don't need any more comedy on this program. I see what this guy's got, some color and some personality and etc. And in a straight promotion, which Ring of Honor used to be, the flamboyant thing, the peacock feathers, the robe, the whole thing, that would stand out. I can see that being an attraction amongst a group of more serious-minded, level-headed athletic competitors. This is another peacock in the fucking zoo. It's just silliness upon silliness because they've already got so many gimmicks. The guy, he's got some interest. He's obviously strong and he's got leverage. He had some interesting throws. I like the suplexes. But I kind of zoned out on this. I saw a spot where they went in the corner and ducked each other's chop, punch, or clothesline 15 times in a row. And even though they weren't even running and hitting the ropes, they were just turning and spinning in position, they were still doing up and overs where they would have never hit the guy anyway. So, and then the match was over. And then here comes Satnam Singh. And he beat up the boys. And he beat up Dalton Castle. And he beat up Jonathan Gresham. And he beat up Lee Moriarty. And for whatever reason, Matt Sydal on crutches thought it was a good idea for him to get in the ring. And this guy's just beat up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grown men with 2 legs. He swings his crutch. And the giant doesn't sell it, grabs his crutch, breaks it, and flings them at a high rate of speed, the crutch pieces, into the crowd behind him. I expect him to pan over to see some old fucking lady grandmother with a goddamn crutch sticking out of her chest like an arrow. But then I realized there's no way a grandmother would be in this crowd. And he went to powerbomb, I gave it Sydal, and here came Samoa Joe with a lead pipe. And Lethal and Sanjay grab the giant, and discretion is the better part of valor. They get the hell out of the ring, and Joe's standing there with the lead pipe, and there's Jay Lethal, one of my favorite athletes in the business, standing there on the floor next to the world's largest Zippy the fucking Pinhead replica.
I think you captured that segment, and we could move on to the next one. I mean, the other thing I guess we could say is that it's Battle of the Belts. Naturally, you want to have different championships on the line, but other than the fans who really follow it, really know what's up, who already follow Ring of Honor, this has never been on TV before. So all of a sudden, this audience is being exposed to a championship, a title, a champion they haven't seen before in the middle of this show. I don't know if that's the way I would have introduced Jonathan Gresham or the Ring of Honor champion onto the program.
No, because he's bought it, but instead of going with a plan to make it somehow bigger or better, to put his own stamp on it and continue the lineage, etc. But again, like you said, is Jonathan Gresham the guy that you want holding a world championship when people on a national cable basis first see that world championship? And the answer may be probably not. So it seems like once he bought the thing, they did the pay-per-view, they had the best match of the entire WrestleMania weekend from any company, Briscoes and FTR. They got some buzz. Don't rush it. Figure out what you're going to do. Put your people in the right place. This would be a place to do some of this shit on YouTube. And then when you, I mean, again, my God, if one of the promising young athletes in AEW was to win the Ring of Honor championship, well, that might give them a little boost. I don't think in this environment you're going to get Jonathan Gresham over in the main mix right now, especially by bringing him in and calling him a world champion. Unlike you. But it was better than what followed, which was Nyla Rose versus Thunder Rosa for a girls' championship of some description. It's the women's title because Jane Cargill is the TBS champion or whatever the fuck. And that was your main event on Battle of the Belts. Nyla Rose, again, 2 years ago, might have had something. After she's bounced around like a Super Bowl and been beaten by every single woman on the roster, nah. So that was that.
Well, that was AEW's Battle of the Belts, a great way to eat up a Saturday night on TBS, or was it TBS? TNT, I guess, right?
No, well, yes, TNT, because they were on TNT. That was the consolation prize for having to move them when they got hockey or whatever. Can you come up with a concept, Tony? 4 times a year is all you needed. Could it be the old, I think sometimes they call them a gauntlet match. Remember, I got sued by the Tough Man promoter for calling it a King of the Mountain match in Smoky Mountain. We did them in OVW. I've seen them years before. You pick your 6 guys, not your top 6 guys, just 6 guys that you want to have in a match. The first 2 have a singles match. The winner of that immediately faces number 3. Immediately, the winner of that faces number 4, number 5, number 6. And the winner of the whole thing gets some kind of believable cash prize or yacht or fucking private airplane or what. Tony's a billionaire. He can afford. It's not like Vern promising $100,000 battle royal people in Chicago. There's 10,000 people here. The tickets were $8 a piece, and they're giving away $100,000. Bullshit. Tony's got the money and it's television. Do one of those matches for an hour. That way you can, you don't release the matchups ahead of time. You just say the 6 guys, and the matchups are determined right before they go in the ring by the fucking draw of the numbers or whatever. And you can have babyface versus babyface or heel versus heel. In times when you never had that, this made it stand out. And you can push a babyface by having them win the first match and win the second match, maybe even win the third match, but goddamn, the 4th guy, they're too worn down and the heel takes advantage of it. Or you can push a heel by having him, if he's a monster, beat the first couple of guys fairly convincingly, and then another big man comes in. Ooh, what's going to happen? Babyface friends have reason to let their tempers flare and get a little rough with each other because there's money or prize on the line, but then they can still shake hands when the thing's over with. But by the same time, a heel that loses can fucking get his heat back by laying the guy out, and then here comes the guy's opponent to pick the bones, and you've established a rivalry between those 2 guys. You can do all kinds of shit. It's 45 minutes of television. And then if you have that every 3 months, then you've got 3 winners. Then on the big 4th Battle of the Belts special, which might become Battle of the Yacht or Battle for the Boat, then you have the 3 winners in a 3-man round robin. The first guy that wins 2 falls is the winner. And it doesn't involve your championships that are on your pay-per-views and your regular television. And it doesn't even have to involve your current rivalries, but you can juice those rivalries up with the people involved in those matches. Or any other kind of concept, 4 times a year, to make this mean something, and whoever comes out of the show as the 1 star of the show actually might get over in some description. Just off top of my head.
Well, again, that was Battle of the Belts, and of course, a lot of the AEW wrestlers will be flying home. Some will be driving to the next locale, the next Dynamite, a Wednesday night in some city in the United States. But you got to make sure before you hit the road that your car has everything running in accordance with the law, of course, the law, and in accordance with getting you to where you're going. And once the babbling stops, Jim, we tell everyone about rockauto.com.
That's what we could do to try to get the taste out of their mouth after that. And also, you know, I've told you about my brakes, Brian. They broke.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but you can get brakes at rockauto.com. And then if you need to break them off later and shove them up your ass, well, you can do that too. But whether your brake stick or your stick breaks, your stick shift or your shift sticks, whatever the case, rockauto.com has car parts for not only car parts, truck parts. They've got parts for unicycles. They've got parts for horseless carriages. They've got car parts. They've got parts for everything. The tanks, amphibious machines, things that they experiment with at NASA and in the military and the Pentagon. If they got parts for all that stuff, you know they can fix your Chevy. And with the ever-increasing number of makes and models now, it's impossible for these traditional chain storefronts to stock all the parts that your car will ever need, but not impossible for rockauto.com. That's why that's their slogan. All the parts your car will ever need, because they got them. Because they're located way off the coast of California on their own Pacific island. On this island, they have at least 4, sometimes 6 of every car part that's ever been made. It's a giant complex, and anytime that your order goes through at rockauto.com, they merely pick that part, put it in a pelican's beak, and fly it to the mainland where it's shipped out. So when you go to rockauto.com, the catalog is unique and easy to navigate, and you can quickly see all the parts, choose the brands, specifications, even choose the prices you prefer. That only goes so far. I said many times I prefer free, and they scoffed at me. But the prices are always reliably low and the same for professionals or do-it-yourselfers. So if you're an amateur shade tree mechanic, some numbnuts that doesn't know whether to wind your ass or scratch your watch, you're going to pay the same thing as a guy that knows how to do it right. Why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? Save that money and get an education. Learn how to do this shit first before you go taking that ratchet wrench underneath your hood. But rockauto.com will fix you up with the parts. What you do with them, well, that's on you. And folks, right now, if you go to rockauto.com and write JCE in the How Did You Hear About Us box, well, that'll be swell. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com.
That's right, Jim, and let's rock on over to some questions from the listeners of Corny's Drive-Thru. This first one, a popular topic. Jim, this email sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Matt Osborne, Georgetown, Kentucky. Let me first say I'm a proud member of the cult, and I use my left and right turn indicators.
Good man.
My question is about something recently said from someone, of course, Jim, you know as Shitstain. Here's the quote. I remember Jim Cornette sitting at Vince McMahon's living room table saying, his exact quote was, Triple H will never draw a dime in this business. Jim Cornette's exact quote. I differed, bro. I thought not only was there a lot of potential in Triple H, Not only was he a great athlete, he was such a student of the game. Can Jim confirm the validity of this? What are his memories of Shitstain's opinion of Triple H?
Well, I can confirm exactly what I always confirm about Shitstain, that he's oblivious to his surroundings, and there is some germ of something in there somewhere, but as usual, because Shitstain's mind is not very fertile, it doesn't grow. For one thing, there was no Triple H at that point in time. What there was, what does Triple H stand for, Brian? It's been a long time.
It's been a while. I don't think they have used it on TV in a long time. Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Hunter Hearst Helmsley was a rich snob with his snooty nose stuck up in the air that wore Jerry Seinfeld's puffy shirt and curtsied on his entrance. That's what Triple H was in 1995, 1996, as everybody will recall that was around then. He, in WCW, was the French nobleman Jean-Paul Levesque in, 95, and he went from there to WCW, and the rib was, obviously, his hometown was Greenwich, because that's where Vince lived, and Vince is a rich snob from Greenwich. And Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the Hearst was obviously William Randolph Hearst, and Helmsley was a play on Leona Helmsley, the Queen of Mean, that was huge in the New York news in the 80s as all the...
And
what'd
90s.
she get tried for? And 90s. What'd she get tried for?
Tax evasion.
Tax evasion, just like all the rest of them rich billionaires. So anyway, again... It was Vince's. I'm surprised they don't have a Hunter Hearst Helmsley on NXT 2.0 right now. It was Vince's weird mid-90s fascination with these cheesy gimmicks that nobody believed. And Triple H before he became Triple H, went from Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the curtsying snob, to then, as he got closer to Michaels and he got better friends with him, and he got to drop some of the affectations and mannerisms and all that stuff, they also realized that his name was nonsense. And remember, it was toward the latter part of 97, I think, and they'd started calling him Triple H, actually, I think in the car, and Michaels and the rest of their group at the time, and they started calling him Triple H on interviews, much like Flair started calling Arn Anderson Double A back in the day, and the Triple H stuck. And now when you think about it, but nobody really does, they're used to, okay, there's Triple H. That name makes no fucking sense whatsoever, except that he originally was a nobleman, or not a nobleman, but a rich snootyman from Greenwich, Connecticut. So to beat around the bush about Shitstain, remember when I got on the creative team, I was before Shitstain. I came in about 2 months after Hunter Hearst Helmsley had the pig pen match with Henry Godwinn with the pigs and the slop in the pen on pay-per-view. That's where his career was going. And I came in, and then he joined the rest of his friends in pulling the curtain call, and he got run down the fucking card by being punished. But what dipshit, I'll change it up from Shitstain, is referring to is, I said, no, neither the fucking guy in the puffy shirt and the curtsy, nor the guy in the fucking pig pen, nor really anybody named Hunter Hearst Helmsley is going to draw 15 cents in Chinese money, because it's all been silly and stupid. But when he got in with Michaels and got under that protection, and then Russo, because he was the only one that was actually happy that they had exposed the business and made everybody pissed off and looked like a joke, he continued to be behind him. My thought was, and I told him this, Triple H, face to face, when he apologized to me for the curtain call, because as you'll recall, he had to, as part of his penance, go to everybody in the office and on the roster and apologize for being involved in the curtain call. And of course, then later on, we found out he didn't mean it. He never meant it. He was just doing that because he was told to.
He said it outright that he didn't mean it.
He said it outright that he didn't mean it. Yes, and I knew he didn't mean it, and that's why I never really cared for him after that. But I told him at the time, I said, look, you obviously have the physical tools, you've got the size, you've got the look, and you like the wrestling business. He was a big fan of Flair, et cetera, et cetera. Why he did all the shit to make it phony, I don't know. But I said, just, keep your head down. Don't get in trouble. The other guys didn't get punished because of who they were, and you're getting punished because you don't have any fucking pull. But you'll come out of this, and hopefully they will give you something that you can run with instead of the fucking, the curtsy. And that's always been my opinion. That was the opinion of him at start. I never said to shit stain, no, this guy will never draw a dime. I said the gimmicks they'd given him wasn't promising. And also, I stand by what I've said because I've said it a million times, which doesn't mean that he was never a draw in the business. He was never the guy. He was the guy that worked with the guy that drew the money. I'm talking about Steve Austin, Undertaker, fucking The Rock, whoever, the guy. Triple H, in my opinion, never attained the iconic status, but he was the guy that could work and could do everything and could put the match together and work with the guy that drew the fucking money. That doesn't mean that he ain't never going to draw a dime in this business. And I guarantee you, during the time that they pushed him to the moon in the WWF, if you'd put him in the main event of any other wrestling promotion's program, it would have tripled their business. But he still didn't put up Austin and Rock numbers, nor have the belovedness of the Taker or or Hulk Hogan or a few others.
No, and I think his title run in the early 2000s actually drove away a lot of fans who got a little tired of the endless monologues and Triple H destroying everyone, whether it's a top singles wrestler or tag team champions, 2-on-1, whatever it was. It got to be a bit much.
Okay, and then now, but see, that is the kind of push that they're giving to Wheeler Yuta in AEW. That kind of push worked for Triple H because he had the fucking personality and the fucking look and the size and the physique and etc. And also the right wife. But you've got to pick carefully who you give a monster push like that to, because even if they're good, a lot of times people react negatively to it if it goes on too long. But at least, sometimes it works, but you've got to be picky with who you start with.
So just to clarify before we move on, you're saying the comment you made was Hunter Hearst Helmsley will never draw money, which is different than Paul Levesque will never draw money in the wrestling business.
Exactly.
And Triple H was not a name anyone used yet.
No, Triple H, look it up, but I know it was sometime in late 97, I bet, before they started calling him Triple H. He was Hunter Hearst Helmsley for a while. So, he, as I said, he slowly dropped the trappings of the Hunter Hearst Helmsley thing as he got more pull and better friends that could protect him. But it was a process to get rid of that.
Jim, let's go to our next question. This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Michael Pallas. On the April 13th, 2017 episode of the Arcadian Vanguard show.
Oh, good Lord. What?
I'm not even sure which show that is.
I was about to say, are you even going to remember this?
You talked about how you would have handled Triple H and Shawn Michaels post-curtain call. Let's say Vince McMahon had fired Triple H and then did as you laid out in that episode, which was working the belt off of Michaels and then firing him. How would things have changed in the WWF? Would Stone Cold, The Rock, and Mick Foley still have developed into the characters they did? If so, how would the Mr. McMahon character have developed without the Montreal Screwjob? And one final question. You've stated on multiple occasions that Triple H was the guy who worked with the guy who drew the money. Who would have you taken on that role? I'm not exactly sure who would have taken on that role? What role?
The role of the guy who worked with the guy that drew the money. Well, you said sometimes there's nobody to take on that role. Or other times you use the guy that you've got or whatever. But backing up, in hindsight, no, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mick Foley, the other guys that he mentioned would have gotten over whether Shawn Michaels was there or not. Shawn Michaels did not. Who was the list again?
Well, the list here is Stone Cold, The Rock, and Mick Foley.
Okay, The Rock would have gotten over regardless. Shawn Michaels had no interaction really with The Rock. Mick Foley, he had a couple great matches with Shawn Michaels, but he had a couple great matches with everybody, and The Undertaker was instrumental there. The one thing, I guess, that Michaels was good for, and even though it was Michaels that put Austin over with Tyson as referee, honestly, at that point in time, Austin beating anybody and interacting with Mike Tyson was money. And that's sort of like the changing of the guard, the passing of the torch. It went from Shawn Michaels' mid-90s era, colorful WWF superstar to Stone Cold. That was kind of an abrupt change. But the one thing that Michaels probably contributed to the WWF, now that you think about it, more than anything else, was the necessity of Mr. McMahon. Because Vince had never, ever thought about turning himself heel or becoming the on-air figurehead personality of even and behind-the-scenes figurehead also. But he'd always been the announcer. He didn't want to be the boss on camera. He'd always been the babyface straight guy, but Mr. McMahon became one of the greatest heel gimmicks in the history of wrestling. And then, of course, it ruined it for everybody else because now you've had 20 years of evil fucking owners. But without having to a self-absorbed, obnoxious, immature, pill-addled fucking prick in Michaels, and not having Bret Hart that fucking you'd screwed out of a contract, and now you give him the opportunity to go to the competitor while he's still your champion. And that whole dynamic, you wouldn't have had Mr. McMahon. So that may have been Shawn Michaels' great contribution to the WWF, being in the mix that caused the emergence of Mr. McMahon.
In terms of what would have happened if they were fired after the curtain call and after Vince could get the title off Shawn, do you think it would have meant much at that point if Shawn had gone to WCW? Triple H, it wouldn't have mattered at that time. Again, he wasn't Triple H. But if Shawn had been fired and gone to WCW, would that have made much of a difference now seeing how everything else played out?
I think it might have, honestly, it might have helped the WWF and fucked WCW up even more. Because now you've got, instead of just having Hall and Nash, who were manipulative and part of the group that was going to take over wrestling, but not the one that was an active head case, pill problem, impossible to deal with prick. You put him down there, Michaels in his prime, button heads with Bischoff, Nash and Hall are trying to keep him straight. Everybody else in the locker room would have hated him, especially all the longtime WCW talent and all the, luchadors and guys that they brought in at that time that he would have treated like flunkies. So it actually might have helped because it would have been a miserable locker room. People would have been even more fighting amongst each other than there was already. If Michaels was in WCW, there wouldn't have been as much control on him there as Vince had, which was precious little in a lot of cases. So the Attitude Era might not have happened because he might have sabotaged WCW before they got going.
Jim, a topic that several people have sent in questions about this morning or this afternoon as we are recording. Reportedly, Alexa Bliss, and I'm trying to find the article here.
I love it when you say reportedly.
Well, reportedly, because several people sent this in, I'm trying to find something I can actually see that tells me where this is all coming from. The story going around is that Alexa Bliss, formerly the demonic wrestler in WWE, I don't know what you would even call her.
Well, some of the fiend rubbed off on her.
Right. She got all poltergeisted out.
Yeah, did the poltergeist.
She hasn't been used in a while. They brought her back for the Saudi Arabian show, and then she hasn't been used again. She wasn't on WrestleMania. There's reports going around that she's not happy with creative.
Uh-oh.
And that she told Vince McMahon that, and I'm going to try to find the article here. Any initial thoughts?
Well, I mean, at least she's got the guts to say it, but how couldn't you be? They've had the girl sitting in a swing, you know, doing a reverse Chucky fucking chant, puking black bile, causing lights to go out and strange supernatural things to occur. I'm not happy with her creative. I can't imagine why she would be. But I don't know this girl at all. Again, you know, she's been one of the more featured names on that female roster. It's usually the low person on the totem pole of either gender that, you know, well, I don't like my creative. Well, fuck you. You're the last person who needs to say something. Remember Big Swole? But in this case, it's somebody higher up on the totem pole. I don't think they want to run her off, do they?
Well, here I have an article. This is from Cultaholic, and it's referencing another article, apparently, from Fightful Select.
That heard third hand from Aunt Gertrude that she heard on the party line that Mrs. Smidgens' fucking bunion was acting up.
According to Fightful Select, there was no substantial creative direction for Alexa immediately after the Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia. Bliss voiced her displeasure following the pay-per-view about the lack of creative, particularly as she had previously been out of action for several months.
Oh, wait, remember she was tearing up the psychiatrist's office.
Yeah.
Trying to come back, and then I guess she didn't pass the Rorschach test.
The word backstage was that Bliss voiced her frustration to Vince McMahon. Pitches were made for Bliss to be involved in the Raw Women's title match at WrestleMania between Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair.
I'm sure she did.
But those ideas were quickly shot down.
I'm sure they were.
And it was determined by late February that the former women's tag team champion would not be in action at the Showcase of the Immortals, aka WrestleMania. The lack of creative for Bliss also appears to have been a late decision by WWE, with it being noted that, quote, priority of booking Bliss shifted significantly after therapy vignettes ended. So there it is. Reportedly, Alexa Bliss let Vince know that she's unhappy with the lack of direction since she tore up the therapy office.
Yeah, and I bet somebody let her know you're 95 fucking pounds, and you're lucky we let you play in our sandbox thus far. I've said she would be great in horror movies. She's a good little actress. She's a spooky little thing. She's 95 pounds and 5 feet tall. So I think she should, you know, maybe study at the Actors Studio, maybe do some workshops or whatever, and see if she can branch out in her entertainment career. Because that phony shit she was doing on the wrestling pro, that may have we heard has there been anybody getting up a petition to get Alexa Bliss back on television after those psychiatrist's office vignettes that looked like they were written by Shitstain for Abyss and TNA?
She has some fans, but I would argue that it's not a majority of the fans and that the product's better without that kind of stuff on the air and that the ratings don't go down without that kind of crap on the air.
Maybe she ought to consider this a positive and stay off television as long as possible so more people will forget what she did the last time she was on television.
She just got married and, you know, do something.
She got married on television?
Not on television, in real life, because I saw all these photos that wrestling fans were posting on Twitter of her and various wrestlers at her wedding.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Did you even really ever look again at your own wedding pictures?
No.
Why do you want to see anybody else's?
I don't.
Exactly. Why are people putting wedding pictures of people they've never even met in person on Twitter? Who gives a shit if somebody you've never met gets me? I watch the local news here, the fine folks at WDRB. And I feel like I've come to know them by name and as part of my family between 4 and 5 every afternoon. If one of them gets married, I don't want to see the pictures. I don't give a shit. Just tell me what the fucking weather is. So wrestle. I don't care if you're married. Just wrestle.
All right, that sounds like some good advice. Let's get another
As you can see, I'm a sympathetic creature. And also, what's the word I'm searching for? I'm God damn it.
Yes.
What is I'm not sympathetic. I'm not nostalgic. Sentimental. That's what I'm trying to say. Idiot.
All right, well, let's sentimentally go to another question here. This one sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Toll in San Diego.
Wait a minute. He's in San Diego? We're jacking it, smacking it. I'm gonna go where there's... All right, anyway, we're jacking it in San Diego.
I remain incredulous. Oh, excuse me, he actually did have a sentence before that. I thought it was just... it didn't relate to the rest of it, but I could say it. Hey, Brian, love your work and listen to you and Jim's podcast religiously. Well, let's make that regularly. I remain incredulous, however.
Yes.
As to how Jim thinks that Cody has turned over a new leaf. Jim was salivating over how Cody was treated like a hero in his first WWE promo. Does Jim not remember how Cody was greeted in AEW for his first promo? It was the same thing. Brian, I think respectfully you might agree that given time, Cody and his wooden promos will eventually turn him into the object of scorn, even with a naive and much younger WWE audience. My question is, can we do an intervention with Jim to prevent him from continuing down this path?
Oh, come on.
Without realizing what the eventual end will be.
Now, how did I say that Cody had turned over a new leaf? I didn't say that Cody had turned over a new leaf.
I think maybe you were talking about the audience reaction in WWE versus the last year or so.
That's not Cody. That's the audience. That's not even the audience turning over a new leaf because that's a new audience crawling out from under the same rock. Again, I think the things that hindered Cody were complex and various. The family, the entourage, the camera-happy wife, the ineffective manager, the retinue of friends and hangers-on and well-wishers, the constant, I'm leaving to go do reality TV and getting hurt and putting someone over, but then I'm coming back and immediately getting my win back. Well, I'm going to go do this show or do that outside project. Number one, the WWE audience, they're used to all their guys being on reality television, being sufferable twats, right? They don't mind wrestlers trying to be TV stars and movie stars and actors and entertainers. It's kind of baked in already. The AEW audience is specifically watching AEW because they're the ones that are opposed to, or supposed to be opposed to, all the showbiz bullshit entertainment and want wrestling. They were promised a sports-based presentation, but we won't go into that lie again. So the AEW audience, they want to see wrestlers that are devoted only to their company that they live, eat, breathe, and sleep over. Notice I didn't say fuck. Just living, eating, breathing, and sleeping. That's what the real diehards in AEW do. Not so much of the fucking. They wanted the guy to be totally dedicated to that, and they got tired of him being pretentious and trying to come off like a celebrity with the entourage. I don't see those problems in WWE. Vince is not going to let Brandy on the fucking show. Vince is not going to give Cody a manager that then turns around and does absolutely nothing. Doesn't speak, doesn't interfere, doesn't apparently give a lot of good advice. He's not going to have Cody's wrestling school following him down to the ring like the goddamn Pied Piper of Duluth, Georgia. And the story that they're trying to tell is not only a classic wrestling story, but also it's a story about not only Cody's father, but this is another reason I'm sure why Vince, because it's Vince's father was in charge at that time. And now they're bringing a multi-generational thing in. It's a great story. It's a more forgiving audience for people that want to be celebrities and be on TV for whatever fucking reason. And there's none of the irritating, social circle. So, and it's completely different fan base that the WWF fans, they've, I guess, made peace with this is all a big phony fucking show. The AEW fans can't figure out which they want. They wanted sports real based wrestling, but then the kind of wrestling that they think is real is fucking Japanese strong style with Minoru Suzuki. So they're all over the fucking place. But I think the atmosphere is different for Cody where he is now. But what do you think, oh Cody hater?
I'm not a Cody hater. I've been a Cody truth teller, actually. If you go back and I have, and check out everything I've said, I've kind of been
that
on
might
target.
Not be a bad wrestling name, Cody Truth Teller.
I think that the big problem with WWE is not going to be Cody as much as how they use Cody. You didn't watch Raw yet. I did. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, in a few days. But Cody gets the big entrance, comes out. Him and Seth Rollins have a long segment in the ring talking. And then later on in the same night, Cody gets the big entrance again. So I think the problem is people getting sick of Cody, but not necessarily because of Cody, but because of the way that people get sick of everyone in WWE. Because I started to feel it last night. Like, okay, he's losing a little bit of his specialness, even though he's clearly the top babyface on that show right now. I mean, the first video package last night was all Cody.
Well, and as long as he doesn't do anything to deflate Vince's opinion, aspirations, hopes, thoughts, whatever on this deal, he'll get the chance to keep on doing it. So we'll see what happens.
Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Scott in Mannheim, Pennsylvania. Was Jim really struck by lightning? He has mentioned it a couple times lately. If so, can he tell the story?
Yes, I was, and not directly like bolt to head, just out in a cornfield somewhere, but more of an indirect nature. But it made the point. I'm living in Morristown, Tennessee. I'm running Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I'm in my house, in my office, in the basement. I'm on the phone, as I recall, with Nancy Caldwell, the widow of the great Whitey Caldwell. She was going to be making an appearance to accept his award at Night of Legends. And there was a thunderstorm going on outside the house. And all of a sudden, bam! What happened, in retrospect and hindsight, because I was in no clear mind to analyze it at the time, lightning hit my house. Whatever portion of the house it hit, it went through the electrical lines because it fried my refrigerator. It knocked the electrical power out of everything. But it fried my refrigerator. 4 or 5 light bulbs and different lights were completely blown. So it wasn't like a power outage and it comes back on. No, it hit. What else did it fried another appliance? And I was on one of those old phone answering machine, fax machine combinations, little desktop thing. And it felt like that somebody had fired a gun off beside my head and punched me in the ear at the same time, because I not only had the loud noise ear ringing, but also it knocked me over sideways on the couch. The phone goes flying, hits the wall. And some period of time, I think it was just a couple of minutes, but it didn't knock me unconscious. But when I next realized what was going on, I was walking around in a circle in my fucking office, and my ears were ringing, and there was no electricity. And then I said, well, I guess I need to go on to the town, because I had a town to go to. So I got in the car and drove down the bottom of the hill and stopped at the convenience store. I was going to get a drink and a Twinkie or something on the way to wherever I was going for the show that night. And these guys were talking as I was checking out. Yeah, they're talking about the weather, and said that bolt of lightning about 15 minutes ago went straight over the hill there. I said, yeah, it hit me. And when I got home that night, my power had come back on, but that's why I found out the refrigerator was fried, and it killed one of my TVs. TV was blown up, had to change 4 or 5 light bulbs. And for whatever reason, that started my hearing situation and then the TNA pyro gave me the tinnitus and finished off the hearing, but where I can't, in a room filled with various different noises like conversation, background noise, I can't pick out individual noises. In a quiet room, I can hear fine. But if the noise is going away from me, or there's a lot of different noise at the same time, it's like gibberish. And for whatever reason, I was talking on the phone on my left ear, but my right ear is the one that's bad. So I guess that's where the bolt of lightning came out. But yes, I was hit by lightning. It's not what it's cracked up to be.
I guess not. Well, you know what it's cracked up to be? Art.
Art.
Buying art, collecting art.
Selling art.
Selling art. Well, let's talk about buying and collecting art. Getting involved with investing in art, I guess we should say.
Well, and you're wondering, folks, right now, who is this Art? I'll tell you what, he's a heck of a fella. His full name is Arthur, but they call him Art. And he's got no arms and no legs, but he hangs on the wall. Folks, we talked about this before. You know, the stock market is iffy these days. I think, what have we been in a holding pattern for like a year now? It seems like we've just gone up and down in the same range in the stock market for a year. But meanwhile, prices of things are going up sky high, especially things that people want. And what do people want? People want things they love, and people want things that are rare. People want things that there's not many of. And people love to collect things that they love that are art that can later be turned into money. And that's where we're all coming around to Masterworks. I've talked about this on the program. Everybody knows I collected comics when I was a kid. And my mom always said, Mama Cornette said, Jimmy, save that, take care of it. Someday it'll be worth something. She said that about everything. She said that about toilet paper and old soap. But in a lot of cases, she was right. And I've mentioned how I turned my old copy of Amazing Fantasy 15 into my new front fence and my nice stone columns down there. Brian, did you know that the art and collectibles market is worth an estimated $1.7 trillion? Trillion dollars.
I didn't know it was that much. I need to get involved in this.
And it's going to be increasing by another $900 billion in the next 5 years, according to someone who I've never heard of and whose name I cannot pronounce. But that's something that you need to sit up and take notice. And if you folks want to get in on the action, this is like collecting comic books on steroids, to use a wrestling term. It's a platform called Masterworks that lets, well, people like you and me, Brian, famous, rich, successful executives, or people like the cult of Cornette members out there, the people, the rank and file, the hoi polloi that you might not think is going to buy a Michelangelo or a Duvet or a Monette or anything like that. Well, you can now,
Monet.
Tommy James and the Shondells. And you and me and all of the people out there.
You think we're alone now?
I think we are. It doesn't need to be anybody else around by now, but we can all invest in art and famous works of art at a fraction of the actual price. What they do is they take a painting that's worth millions of dollars and they cut it like 40 pieces. And you
No. That's not how it works. It's not. Your share is not an actual divided share of the painting. It's a share of ownership.
Oh, I was wondering how they were going to put it all back together again at the other end.
No, there's no taking apart of any of the fine works of art.
Okay, well, but you can invest in them and you can make money. You can make $1.7 trillion.
Well, no, that's the overall market. You shouldn't expect to make that much.
Well, if you corner the market, then you've got $1.7 trillion.
How are you going to do that? Are you going to buy up all the artwork in the world?
Well, goddamn, if I keep making money like this, I am. $1 trillion is nothing to sneeze at. Anyway, I've talked about Masterworks before on the podcast. And so many of you, I don't know who you are, but so many of you signed up. They want to offer all of our listeners now priority access. You can skip their wait list. Skip the wait list and get straight to the information and to the helpful, benevolent Masterworks team that will help you, tell you all about this, guide you through the various processes. You go to masterworks.art, masterworks.art/Jim, masterworks.art/Jim. You can skip the wait list. You get priority access. You can figure out how you can put your money where it will not only appreciate, but grow in unfathomable ways. Unfathomable. Because I'm telling you, there's no telling how much money you can make on it. You get a piece of the Mona Lisa, you don't know what you're into there. Nevertheless, you can also see important Regulation A disclosures. I don't know what they are, but they sound fucking legal. At masterworks.io/CD. But anyway, go to masterworks.art/Jim for the good stuff, and then find out what's wrong with it at masterworks.io/CD.
Well, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Mike. What is your honest opinion of the what chants?
That's the entire question. Well, that's enough. Oh, goddamn. It was great for Austin, and I think he's probably even sorry he came up with it now, because it's just, and it'll die down because, you know, people get the wind out of their sails and move on to something else. But then with Austin coming back, it's just resurged. Every time he shows up, it's around when he's not there. And there's some guys. Remember we said Steen shut him up here a while back, a few weeks ago, and there's been a couple of guys that can handle it verbally and get out of it, but some of them, the poor things, are out there twisting in the wind to begin with, trying to remember this soliloquy that they've been force-fed, and they're trying to get that out, and the people are fucking with them, and it just throws your train of thought off. It throws the point of the promo off. And, I mean, sometimes, and I don't know, somebody said, well, how would you handle it? I don't know. I'd have to be there. I'd have to know what I was saying, and hopefully I'd be quick as a few of these other guys are to tie something logical in and shut them up or make them laugh or make them really pissed. Because if they really hear something they don't like, they'll boo instead of what? Or if they really hear something they agree with, they'll cheer instead of what? But a lot of times, they're not letting the guy get that far, and he's not in command of the situation enough to be able to swim upstream on his own. So it's just hijacking the show. It's ruining other people's enjoyment of what they might enjoy if they had a chance. I'm not saying it would always be good. Sometimes the what chant may be better, but you're not going to find out how good this guy could have done something if you won't shut up and listen to him. And then when you find out it sucks, then fucking what him to death.
Well, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Zach. Ayo, Jim and Brian.
Aew!
Given the nature of professional wrestling, it will attract athletic people, and in that crop of talent, you have outliers.
Did you just say in that crap of talent?
I said crop of talent.
I thought you said crap of talent.
I'll try this again. Ayo, Jim and Brian. Given the athletic nature of pro wrestling, it will attract athletic people, and in that crop of talent, you have outliers. One in particular was Lex Luger, who looked to be built like a super athlete, but wasn't noted as being able to sustain high performance at a certain pace. What in particular do you recall was ever the reason some wrestlers' cardio levels weren't up to par? And that was actually the subject line of the email. Is cardio tricky for wrestlers to maintain?
Well, cardio's tricky for athletes or anybody else to maintain. It depends on, your conditioning and your genetics and etc. But here's the thing. Now we're knocking Luger again, and we go back and we look at Luger and we go, holy shit. At that point, he was an outlier. He was a guy with a big body that was only in the business for a couple of years and was viewed by all the rest of the more accomplished performers as green as a pepper tree. And, he's 270 pounds and 4% body fat or whatever and jacked up like that. That's not an easy frame to carry around at a high pace like Flair and Tully and Arn and a lot of the baby faces besides Dusty at that time were putting up. But if you go back and look now, if there was anybody with Luger's body that could bump and move like he could then, today, they'd be the goddamn biggest star in the wrestling business. So it's all relative. And I look back on Luger's matches now more fondly than when they were happening because the bar is so much lower now. We used to laugh, right? It's like, the horseman will carry him along or something. But now it's like, fuck. You can't find a lot of guys that are that good. So, no, I don't think that Luger had horrible cardio. I think he was a bigger guy trying to keep up the pace that, a lot of those guys were, using back then. And it wasn't that they were doing move after move after move after move, is that they were always in action, always in motion, always putting out some oomph, even if they were just firing the people up. It wasn't just, okay, now let's go to the double reverse flipping half gainer triple Lindy that we practiced. It was a steady, grueling, I'm on you. If you're the baby face and you're selling and the heel's getting heat on you, he's staying on you, he's being aggressive, you're having to fight back from underneath. Or vice versa. That takes cardio more a lot of times than these deals where, as I mentioned earlier in the program, guys get in and do 3 or 4 spots and then roll out and disappear for a couple of minutes. Nobody disappeared in matches back then unless you had your head run into the ring post and were supposed to be knocked out to benefit the match or the finish. You were in the match, at least watching the match, participating in it, a visual participant in the thing. So, no, they're doing a lot more now, but it was more aggressive and a better overall pace at that point, and guys needed cardio. But the bigger guys weren't going to be, and I mean, when you talk about Lex Luger's cardio, for heaven's sake, one of the nicest guys in the world, but the Warlord wasn't out there running any fucking sprints. When you had the real big beasts and the monsters, they didn't need cardio because they weren't working at that pace. Although I've mentioned Yokozuna. Underneath that 700 pounds was the most amazing 325-pound athlete in the entire world. The cardio just to get in the ring and do what he did was incredible because of the weight. And then, me, I'd work for 2.5 good solid minutes and I'd be ready to throw up. It just depends on the situation and what's going on and what your frame is.
And there's always stories about Ric Flair, who was famous for working long matches or 60-minute matches, doing cardio no matter what the next day, the next morning after he was out partying. And I'm curious, with that in mind, he was always on the Stairmaster, people said. You ran a wrestling training school. Is there a specific form of cardio that is best to help a wrestler who's sucking wind early in their career or can't get up to snuff so they can work a long match? Is there anything you've seen in your experience that is actually best at helping someone get to that point?
Well, a lot of guys do this. And I mean, Flair was a freak. We've talked about it when they had commissions doing medical checkups on the guys. His was always the lowest resting heart rate in the locker room. He and Stan Lane would have a contest. Stan might be close, but Flair just had a marathon runner's constitution, according to the doctors, at 230 pounds. So he was doing a variety, and he was a workout freak. So he'd do an hour on the Stairmaster, and then he'd do his regular workout and squats and all that stuff. And then he would go to the show, and he would be doing squats in the locker room to warm up. And then he'd work 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever. Then he'd go out and party, and then he'd do fucking cardio the next morning in his gym. But he was from another planet. But a lot of guys make the mistake of doing cardio on the Stairmaster and think that's the be-all and end-all. The cardio of running in the ring. You talked earlier in the program about running in sand or running in mud.
Water.
Or running in water. That's the thing, is in the ring, it's different. So a lot of times it's getting in the ring and just doing the drills, doing a hit the ropes drop down or crisscrosses, or some of the drills that Rip Rogers used to fucking come up with, where one guy would get in the ring and everybody else in the class would feed for him to just do an arm drag, and he'd do 20 arm drags or just 20 whatever. That kind of cardio where you're actually doing the movements in the ring is more helpful than just standard cardio to a lot of guys, because you're also taking the bumps at the same time. And you're also replicating, processing information. Somebody's coming at me. They're feeding me an arm. I'm thinking, I'm doing all this stuff. That's what blows guys up. When guys are green or nervous in the ring, they don't breathe. You can breathe on the Stairmaster all day long because you're paying attention to it. You're not nervous. You're not scared. When you're in the ring, people are watching. You're not confident. You're nervous, whatever. You're not breathing. Then you blow up, and then you're ready to puke. That's why Lawrence Taylor at WrestleMania. Bam Bam Bigelow is a 400-pound giant man shaped like a marshmallow. And he was fine. Lawrence Taylor, one of the great stars of the National Football League, was so fucking blown up, he had turned white and had to be helped to a chair. Different cardio.
Several people have sent in different quotes. I found the original article here. Did you see anything recently about Triple H, comments he made about NXT in an article on theathletic.com?
Well, I did see that he basically was trying to say that, well, we planned to make those changes all along. I just wasn't around for them, but we really got to get the guys' camera ready for the main roster instead of what we were doing for the past 7 years or whatever, is the tone of the conversation.
Well, I have a little bit here. I'll read it to you, get your thoughts. The line here, the subject in this part of the story, the move to NXT 2.0. NXT's brand change and TV move to Tuesday nights were seen by many as an admission of defeat after going head-to-head with AEW Dynamite. And it coincided with this youth movement. It also largely came while Levesque was out of the picture following his health scare. But he defended the move and said the shift was always part of the plan. Quote, there was this point where it was on the network, it had this cult following, and needed to get on television. And we needed to get on television. How do we do that? We need more experience. Need to professionalize this a little bit to make a product to where the fans want to see that. We got them to that place. The pandemic messed it up a little bit because it was right when we went on TV and we had to shift our focus, doing it in front of no people. It completely altered what we were doing. We couldn't recruit or train talent for almost 2 years, but the show stayed. Then
Wait a minute, they might not have been able to recruit a lot, but they could train talent because the talent was there already. And did they stop training, actually training?
I'm not sure what closed down in Florida, which was a very friendly place to keeping things open during the pandemic at the height of it. I don't know what they did or didn't do. I'd have to go back and check.
All right.
But let me return to this. But then we said, okay, let's reboot it and go back to what we originally were. Some of these people won't be ready for television, but we're going to put them on television. And we believe the audience is invested enough
that chicken won't be cooked all the way, but we're going to risk the ptomaine.
We believe that the audience is invested enough that the numbers might come down, but a core group of them will stay. And now you're creating fresh stars all the time. That's where we are now. The numbers have stabilized. There's more, but I'll stop there for any initial thoughts.
Well, Ring of Honor was getting the alternative wrestling fan that wanted to see athletic sports-based presentation. And so the indie wrestling fans in general, which is a segment of the wrestling fan population that doesn't like the big companies, that likes the indie stuff, okay, so they made their own Ring of Honor, NXT. They made their own indie. And it had the better quality of wrestling in NXT that fan base wanted to see, rather than these interminable entrances and the complete showbiz gaga, even though they showbizzed a lot of NXT up. So he had the product that was most athletically demanding in the ring, but also appealed to the traditional wrestling audience. That's why the age of the NXT audience was mostly older, because they weren't slapping you in the face with this is phony horse shit. So it was the only thing that was palatable for people that had been fans of professional wrestling. Where they went wrong was they signed every indie darling and kept a lot of them there so long that were so minute in size or so colorless in personality that when Vince finally, as we've said, anytime that Vince finally decides to pay attention to something he hadn't been paying attention to, you're in trouble in that company. The first time that Vince really needed to pay close attention was, well, why aren't the ratings better than AEW's? Even though it's the third program with the greenest talent, and they were competitive within a couple 100,000, Vince doesn't like that. Vince goes down and takes a look. I'm sure he saw Johnny Gargano and said, what the fuck are all of you doing? And then he saw...
Do you think that's what he said when he saw Adam Page, and that's why people had to try to convince him to keep him on as a manager?
Adam Cole,
excuse me.
Probably. There are some of the indie darlings that also have a look and personality, and MJF became an indie darling before he joined AEW. And everybody was talking about him. There was something there in that case. But unfortunately, a lot of the indie darlings are the small guys that do nonstop moves with no facials, which is a Vince McMahon picadillo. If you got a blank face, you're going to get a blank fucking check, as in not signed with no money on it from Vince McMahon. If you've got an expressive face, body language, and a personality, then that's what he's looking for, and he wants to see the look. You don't have to be 7 feet tall, but you got to be bigger than some of those guys were. So instead, and with the way Vince is, instead of going in there and reasonably saying, okay, you've gone a little too far. I like that guy, and that guy. Some of these guys are too small, and do you see any money in this fucking mud fence over here? He's bland. Instead of doing that, he just said, fuck it. Redo all this shit. We're going to make some gimmicks, some characters. And then you get the fucking 90s, the sanitized Tony Soprano without the violence and murder and all of the ridiculous gimmicks that Vince comes up with relating to the guy's personal interests or out of the ring occupation or we've never had a garbage man.
But, part of the problem, too, is you're saying gimmicks. That's one thing. And the Tony D'Angelo thing, to use him as an example, just seems like it's really outdated. Seems ridiculous. Doesn't fit in with modern wrestling.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the people that use names that are somewhat real, there's an edict right now. He doesn't want anyone using anything that's remotely close to their real name, so they can't leave WWE one day and use it. Here are some recent names they've trademarked. Roxanne Perez, Alba Fire, Cruz Del Torrio.
Wait, what?
These are names they've trademarked for people in NXT.
Cruz Del Torrio?
So they can give them new names that they could own. And finally, remember Casey Catanzaro?
Yes.
Small girl, very small, but someone who's actually been on TV. She was a Ninja Warrior champion.
And she's been on their TV for months and months and months.
And her new name? Katana Chants. But that's my point. It's a gimmick. It's a stupid, outdated gimmick like Tony D'Angelo, or it's a ridiculously made-up name they're going to put on you while they take you and make you as generic as possible.
I want to see the tag team of Howie Felter Snatch and fucking, Bend Over.
I don't know if you're going to be seeing that in NXT, but let's go back to Triple H's quotes here. People like Braun Breaker. He's been training for a year. Half the women, they've been here a year maybe. There's a lot that's so fresh and so new. People used to say the constant churn of NXT was a negative. The churn is what's great about it. The people here now, hopefully a year and a half from now, none of them are even in NXT anymore. And the ones that make it will be on to Raw and SmackDown.
And that's going to be the problem, too. If you put somebody on national TV after they've been in wrestling school for a year and a half, Jesus Christ.
That's the magic. It truly is the developmental league, the college football, AAA baseball. Yeah, they're not all quite ready to be in the major league role yet, but you're discovering them before they become household names. So I'll stop there, and there's one more section here.
Well, again, what's he going to say? My father-in-law got pissed and decided to fucking tear everything up and start from scratch. He's trying to put a positive spin on it, but again, you can't take a guy from scratch, train him for a year and a half, and expect him to be ready to be on national television, maybe to do jobs. They rushed him in OVW. They want to rush him now because Vince has no patience. And, basically he's trying to put a good face on what they're doing that people are complaining about. And I don't blame him, but it ain't going to really particularly work. And they asked us one time at a WCW booking committee meeting, Jim Herd, Jim Ross, Jim Barnett, Jody Hamilton, myself, Kevin Sullivan, Ric Flair. Who am I leaving out?
Barnett?
Maybe Terry. I said Barnett. Maybe Terry Funk was there at that point. And Barnett, on behalf of Jim Herd, because he knows what Herd wants to talk about, so he's going to jump in there and make sure we talk about that. Well, boys, this was February, right? February 1990. And Sting has just got hurt, and we're switching Luger, and I think that's when one of the skyscrapers was about to be hurt, and we were going to bring in Mark Callis, Undertaker, to fill his spot, and somebody else had an issue and was home. Basically, the only program that was running was the Midnight Express against Pillman and Zink, because we didn't even need Zink to be there. Nobody noticed him anyway. And Barnett says, well, what are we going to do to draw money next month? And they went around a table and somebody gave one idea and somebody gave the other idea. Somebody gave and went to me and said, what are we going to do to draw money next month? I said, we're not. What? We're not. It doesn't matter what we do right now. We're not going to draw any money next month, and we're not going to draw any money the next month, and we're not going to draw any money the month after. But if we start right now with a coherent plan, using the guys that we can depend on to show up and not milk these new guaranteed contracts for fictitious injuries, then we can probably draw some money in 4 months. And Barnett said, well, that's easy for you to say. It's not your money. That's what's even easier for me to say because it's the fucking truth.
It was never Barnett's money either.
Well, exactly.
Where's Johnny
Very
Doyle?
Ironic comment coming from him. Where's Lonnie? And guess what happened? We didn't draw any money the fucking month after, or the month after, or the month after that. And because they didn't start then with a coherent plan, they didn't draw any money on the 4th month either.
Well, to finish off this section about Triple H talking about NXT, we were talking about this shift anyway. That's where we were headed. It happened at a period of time where I had to leave for a bit. Luckily, Sean had been doing it with me all that time, so it was a seamless thing. I stepped out, did what I needed to do, but the team has killed it. They've really created a show where you can really say, that's the next generation of stars. I just want to say here,
of what?
My 2 cents only thing where he said, the team has killed it. Didn't they fire his entire team? Sean's the only one still there.
That's what I was going to say. He said, well, thankfully, Sean was there and ready to step in and take over to help everybody carry their bags out to the fucking cab. The team killed it, all right. Actually, the father-in-law killed it. The team executed his wishes, but they've killed it. Yeah, they're not. How are they getting anybody ready for the main roster when they're putting people on TV that are too green to be on television, and they're giving them gimmicks and names that they're obviously going to change as soon as they go to the main roster? So what are they getting them ready for? They're giving them practice. You could do that at the fucking church gym at St. Therese and in front of 75 people. And maybe when one or more of these people get somewhat good at what they're doing, then they might go on TV and get over because people haven't seen them when they couldn't remember whether to fucking turn right or turn left. But that's just me.
Well, maybe, Jim, you're a wrestler. Maybe you're someone who's been wrestling internationally for years to some acclaim. Perhaps you call yourself, I don't know, Walter. And then all of a sudden you have to change your name to Gunther, become a Nazi or whatever they tried to make him, and then you get to walk that back.
Or a lion tamer.
And then the entire time you're on the main roster, people are still chanting Walter. It must piss you off. You must really hate this booking malpractice. What if there's someone you could talk to about suing?
Intellectual property. That's what you're trying to protect, your property, which is intellectual. And intellectuals protect their property by calling on the services of one man that can defend them against the raging forces of the outside world.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Those are the rest.
Yes, folks, call him. 888-692-8084. Call it. He gets phone calls all the time. Early morning, late at night. He's up all the time. If he ain't getting calls, he's making calls about the calls that he's gotten. And what's more, he's always writing those writs. And I'll tell you what, I've read the writs he's written, and they're really well-written writs. But you don't write anyone off. You can save the day. You can save your situation. It doesn't have to be written off. All you got to do is call Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084 for any of your legal needs, or just to call him up early in the morning and jack him out of bed. He'll answer that phone call in a fine humor. Folks, again, we've talked about the opioid-addicted babies, the lawsuits that are continuing to be pressed. It's already in the process on those things that the pharmaceutical company tried to bankrupt themselves to get out of. Well, they're chasing them down on that, whether it's your polluted groundwater, whether it's something in some way that you have been harmed or damaged. Stephen P. New and his team at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084, did I say, can take care of you regardless of what the legal onslaught might be. You need your guide, your Sherpa, to navigate you through those terrible, treacherous legal pitfalls and into the summit of getting paid. And as we've mentioned many times before also, if Stephen P. New cannot get your ass paid, your ass does not accept cash. newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. He's standing by now.
No, he's not. No, he's not. He's not standing by. No, he's not.
It's all he does is answer phone calls. Some of them are happy calls. Some of them are angry calls, but he's always on a call.
He's a very busy man, and someone will be there to help you out. Stephen P. New.
He does have minions.
As any busy man does, yes, of course. But let's get another question here, Jim.
He's a busy bee.
He's a busy bee, and we have a question from another busy bee here. This one sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from John Fell in Baltimore.
Oh, a returning OG to the program. John Fell in Baltimore. And, of course, that made all the local news. He's up now, and he's asked a question.
I understand David Simon's making an HBO series about his fall in Baltimore, but let's get to this question here. In the territory days, with dirty canvases and constant travel, how did wrestlers avoid getting infections in their heads or arms when they cut there? Other than butterfly bandages and Band-Aids, was there ever a need to use an antibiotic cream on a deep cut? With a person who bled easy, was there ever an issue of wounds opening up in the middle of the night while sleeping? Flair has said he bled almost every night during the 1986 Great American Bash. It's crazy to think you guys had to get juiced 4 to 6 times a week and still be able to wrestle every night with those cuts happening so often and not constantly bleed.
Well, where can I start tackling this? For one thing, the dirty mats and the Zabada, the germs. Everybody had tubes of Neosporin in their bag, and you didn't just slap the piece of tape on it. Usually, you would put a little Neosporin or something. Well, some guys would, some guys wouldn't. I mean, I don't know if Abby was a big Neosporin person because, it was so often and so much. But Flair and Garvin, when they had that series, they both had, especially Flair, he was putting it on every night because Ronnie's overhand chops, for some reason, took more skin off than Flair's knife edge chops. But when Garvin and Flair worked that program where they were working every night of the week for weeks on end, Flair lost. It was like he looked like a burn victim because the top 2 layers of the epidermis, right, the skin, was all peeled off of his chest, and it was the pinker, brighter skin underneath it, like when a burn victim's blister falls off. So he was covering his chest every night with that fucking antibiotic cream. Dennis Condrey used to save his blades because it's time consuming to make one. And sometimes you don't have enough tape or you don't have a blade or you don't have the right scissors or whatever. Dennis would save his in one of those little pill containers. Like your pill strip for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Right.
He'd have a couple of, after he used them, he'd put them back in his tights. And when he got back in the locker room, he'd pull it out, he'd soak it in some alcohol, and he'd put it back in the fucking container, and he'd use it the next time he needed one. Saved making another one. Probably not the most hygienic thing, but it was only him. He mentioned cutting, and nobody was cutting their arm back then except for the Sheik. And
Dusty.
Well, and Dusty did. Dusty did it. Actually, Dusty started doing it in Detroit, didn't he? When he worked for the Sheik up there.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Because that famous picture of him with the U.S. title, his arm is bleeding, is from Detroit. But anyway, there was very few people doing that. The mats were disgusting. In the Sportatorium in Dallas, you could smell the mildew from the ring, because the ring was never taken down in that building. And I don't know how often the mat may have ever been changed, but the padding underneath and everything peripherally around the ring was still the same as it had been for years and years. You could smell the mildew 20 feet away. In Tennessee, the Memphis territory, they old canvases that were duct taped and had been sewed up or patched or not even patched, especially on the spot show ring that they used to carry around on an open trailer, not a truck, but an open trailer down the interstate. And so in the summertime, they've gone through these county fair shows in the backwoods of nowhere. Those rings are filthy. You know, you just did the best you could, but with the specifically, and sometimes you got busted open or got scraped, and that's why staph infections would come from elbow and knee scrapes and things like that, because that's something you didn't think about paying a lot of attention to. You got those all the time. You're paying attention to cut on your head or whatever, but you know, so it was not. And then there was staph just is transmitted by potentially sometimes somebody's sweat getting in the wrong place.
It seems like we heard a lot about staph infections in the last 15 or 20 years. Do you hear a lot about it back then before wrestling fans knew about what injuries were?
Oh, yeah, because that's the worst thing. Staph is not only painful and deadly if it's untreated because it's blood poisoning, but also it's contagious. And so and it comes from the dirt and the grime and the et cetera, getting into an open wound or whatever. So that was the thing that you were worried about. You know, one of the things you were most worried about was you don't want to get a staph infection. You got to take off work. You may have to have antibiotics, something lanced. It's a process. And a lot of guys had trouble with it. And then back in the 20s and 30s, was it trachoma that Strangler Lewis had that caused guys to go blind? It was a disease of the eyes that you got from dirty mats and sweat and germs or whatever. And I guess there's treatments for it now, but it caused blindness in those days. And there was Fez talks about it in his book. There was some treatment that they gave back then where they actually had to take some type of pumice stone and scrape your eyeball. And
oh my God.
Yeah, I don't want to be doing that.
No.
So
all right.
But
so
now
first day in the territories.
Everything is as clean as a fucking whistle, and there's no grease, grit, grime, or glamour or anything, and it's kind of like, that's when they cleaned wrestling, they took the heart out of it. Now the ring is clean, the seats are clean, the building's clean, the lights are bright. Nobody's allowed to hurt each other in a working way just for real by accident. And it was a lot grittier back then.
Well, that was going to be our last question, but a few things that are coming in as we are wrapping things up here.
Breaking news?
Well, I don't know how broken it is, but news of one sort or another. Jim on Twitter, a little while ago, a tweet from Jack Evans, wrestling superstar. My time with AEW has been a fun and enjoyable, that's what it says, has been a fun and enjoyable, but it has come to an end, as I will not be re-signed when my contract ends at the end of April. I'd like to thank everyone in AEW and the AEW fans for the opportunity. Nice statement there. Any thoughts on
that? Was nice. That was a very nice thing to say. And I think he realizes he's probably lucky he had that run and he doesn't want to rock the boat for the future. So he's not going to big swole old Tony.
this is the time. I mean, in the next few months, there are going to be different people coming up. Do you think we're going to see people doing this, or do you think we're going to see people start big swolling Tony?
Well, I think it depends on who the people are. I mean, you could tell with Big Swole from the start. Remember when we didn't even know she was a wrestler? She was one of the paid fans in the empty arena thing. She's up in the heel's face, fucking finger pointing, not backing down from anybody, from men twice her size, stars when she's a nobody. You could tell that she was very convinced that she was a brilliant piece of talent in the wrestling business. Jack Evans, at least he shows here he's, grateful and somewhat humble. And even if he doesn't feel that way, even if he wants to say, fuck Tony Khan, he knows that he doesn't have the cachet in the industry to just say, well, fuck you, ought to be on national TV for 5 more years because a bunch of people would shit on him. So he's being nice. You get some of those and you get some of the other ones.
But what about Angelico?
Does he speak? I've never heard it.
I just saw a clip the other day of someone put him in like a wrist lock or something and he started doing his dance move. It was so stupid. But Jim, the other news as we are wrapping things up, this is breaking right now. According to Fightful Select has learned that WWE has an interest in Ring of Honor and AAA Tag Team Champions FTR.
Whoa!
It's being reported that WWE's interested. The contracts are expiring over the summer, although AEW does have an option on them. What are your thoughts on this?
If he's got an option, they're not going anywhere unless they asked and he said okay. Because if you've got an option on the best tag team in the fucking business that is just, after all this time, been allowed over the past few weeks to prove that they're the best tag team in the business, you're not going to let them go on purpose. And maybe WWE realizes now with the performances they've been putting on that they're, oh shit, we fucked up. Or maybe it's like, we still don't give a shit for tag team wrestling, but these guys are valuable to the other company, so we'll make a play for them.
Do you think they asked Cody to call?
Possibly. Or maybe just asked Cody, hey, what are they making? When's their contract up? And have they been in a good mood lately? And then he would say, well, contractually, because of the NDA that I have signed with Tony Khan, I can't tell you that their contracts are up in October, even if they are. And I also can't tell you that they're making X amount of dollars, even if they are. But I can tell you that they've been grumpy lately, because that's just an opinion. So it's the same thing. But then the problem, if FTR stay in AEW, they're, again, anachronisms at this point. They're a great wrestling tag team in a company where they prize indie-rific spot doers over great wrestlers most of the time. But if they go back to the WWE, they'd be highly paid, but they would also be in a place where there's probably even less chance for them to do their classic wrestling matches, because the overall up and down the card, they may be better workers in WWE, but their matches are totally less important than any other company in the world. So, of all the places that FTR could go in wrestling, I wish they could go to Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, because that would have been perfect. They would have been the fucking World Tag Team Champions. But unfortunately, the bar has fallen so low that you almost can't find a place for the best in-ring tag team in the business to go. We got a musical audience out there.
We certainly do, and the music doesn't stop there because the drive-thru is closed. I give up. All right. Of course, we'll be back with you on the Jim Cornette Experience this weekend.
Of course.
My voice is doing it again. Wherever you find your favorite podcast. And of course, you can hear Jim Cornette and me, Peter Brady, right back here next week on the Drive-Thru, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Of course, you can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette You can follow me on Twitter at GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcast. Opening week Star Wars is out right now. Check that out at 605pod.com. Don't forget about the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette and subscribe today as we approach 300,000 subscribers. Be one of them. Maybe even be the 300,000th. And check out full episodes, clips of episodes, omnibus collections, all with the extremely popular Travis Heckle artwork, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. If you'd like to access classic episodes of the Drive Thru Any Experience, become a patron today. Patreon.com/Cornette. For only $5 a month, you get access to the archive of the Drive Thru Any Experience going back to the beginning in 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. Don't forget about Cornette's collectibles at JimCornette.com, powered by the Featherbottoms.
That's right. And they are power bottoms if I've ever seen one. And I'm signing figures as fast as possible. It can happen to you. Just take heart. This stuff's going out like crazy.
At JimCornette.com. Of course, the Drive-Thru is brought to you by the Law Office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until this weekend on The Experience, and next week right back here on the Drive-Thru, for Cornette, I'm last. Tally-ho!
Ho!